Welcome, everybody, to episode 23 of Barbarian Banter. I'm your host, Jonas Kilker.
And I'm your co-host, Dane Miller-Haas.
And our guest today is a purveyor and connoisseur of all things literature, from the classical to the modern, the fictional to the philosophical, and he has turned his passion into an outlet for content where he produces semi-coherent ramblings about the greatest works of all time. It's a pleasure to have him on the show today. Welcome, Dante.
What's going on, man? Thank you guys for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, dude, it's been a pleasure. We were just talking about earlier how when I first started posting content, and my first video was about like Buddhism or something. I was just talking about philosophy, just like 1 minute thoughts. And you're one of the first people to like really kind of be like, bro, this is awesome, keep going. And it was right around the same time because you had been posting on TikTok for a long time about literature and reading, and you were kind of getting into philosophy around that same time. So we just kind of happened to like cross paths at the right time. What got you into, I know this is a huge question, but it's like kind of introductory. Like, what got you into reading? What's your background? And when did you start creating content?
Man, okay. So I started making content probably around like 2020, 2021, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't on reading. I made books or videos on like music and like ranking
Mm,
music and new albums and new releases and such.
nice.
And then, hey, let's back up. Let's back up. But yeah, around 2021 is when I started making content itself. But around maybe 2024, late 2024, I stopped playing basketball. And that had been my whole life until that point. I played basketball for like 16, 17 years. And I needed something to like, I'm sitting around in the house, I have nothing to do. Let me just read. I have like 90 books here. My parents used to read since they were really young too. We all kind of read in the house now, but I was
Did
like,
you
let me
have
just
like
pick up like
really
a random
nice
book.
books?
Yeah, my dad used to get. See, I'm really like paperback, and I'll go to used bookstores and get random books. But my
Same.
dad's like specific hardcover from this edition, this translation. He's one of those readers.
I had like the Reader's Digest, like really nice ones that
Yes,
looked like they came in
the
a
ones that
color
are like
coded
old.
book. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
how
Oh
I
my
got into
god.
reading too. So that's kind of funny.
See, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But I think the book that really did it for me to me start reading was Native Son by Richard Wright.
Mm.
And I didn't finish the book, which is crazy. I started reading on with a book that I didn't finish, but I was like, well, I could tell there's something here. Maybe if I keep reading something I'll like, maybe that'll do it for me. So I
Yeah.
DNF'd that book and I picked up Picture of Dorian Gray. And after that,
Mm.
it was over. It was over. I read that in maybe like 2 or 3 days. And this is the
Mm-hmm.
great segue into philosophy because there's a character in Dorian Gray named Lord Henry or Harry sometimes in the book, but he's like
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate contrarian the entire time. And you know, to be a great contrarian, you have to know what they're talking about on both sides.
Right.
So he's a very philosophical character, and he would have these great monologues and 2, 3 long pages of him just like ranting or venting to Dorian. And I was like, I need to read books that sound like this. I need to find books that sound like this.
Mm.
And after that, I was like, let me look it up. I think the first book I found was Myth of Sisyphus by Camus.
Okay.
And then
Nice.
I was kind
And
of like,
Camus a
he's
great
great,
transition too, because he's like a great
great one.
writer. Like he's kind of in that like fictiony realm who kind of mixes in the philosophy like into his narrative. So it's like a perfect way to go.
Perfect. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Camus did a lot for me. Honestly, like, getting me into philosophy was the first thing that it really kind of like kicked down that door to now I'm trying to read way more stuff, religion, theology, way bigger once you get past that first kind of step. But it was also something that made me realize that I can disagree with something as well. It was the first philosopher or thinker that I was like, I don't really
Mm.
agree with what he's saying. Now, when I first read it, obviously, to like build an opinion on anything, you have to take multiple opinions. So when I first read it,
Right.
I was like, dude, he's right. Absurdism is probably this is it. It's the greatest philosophy ever. But
Yeah.
like I think after maybe like 4 or 5 books, I was like, well, if I try to revisit this, I probably like won't agree with it. And then that kind of made me like read larger things, bigger text, rebuttals and critiques,
Hmm.
and now we're here, man. Now we're made an account for it.
Super
Yeah,
cool, bro.
long
I
journey.
love that. It is, and because I think I remember when I first like one of the first videos I saw of yours was you doing a review of like I think it might have actually even been the Picture of Dorian Gray, and you were talking about like a couple other authors like Kafka and like Dante Alighieri and stuff. But then, like I said, you started talking about how like you're like, yeah, I'm trying to get more into philosophy, and I was kind of just following along your videos, and I'm looking at your like book hauls that you got, and you got like City of God by Saint Augustine, and you got like all these like super heavy philosophical tomes, and I'm like, oh shit, he's going like into the deep end. Like this is not Plato's Symposium, which you might have read, but like it's like you know what I mean, the meat and potatoes. Was that really difficult for you at all, or do you feel like having a good basis in reading for the first like 3 or 4 years that you got into reading just like regular whatever literature, fiction stuff? Do you think that that gave you like a good base for being able to digest philosophy, or is it a totally different beast?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I'm not gonna act like I'm some prodigy at all. But I think what it was for me is that because kind of writing simultaneously when I first started reading, like in kind of in general, around the same time I stopped playing basketball, since I was really lost in where to go for like meaning, and I felt like I lost what I've been doing my whole life. My aunt and I used to read the Bible every day at 8 a.m. And she was like, "This will be a big good thing for you because right now you're feeling lost and you don't really know where to go." And we ended up reading the entire New Testament, and I forgot how long it was, but it was a few months of us doing this every day, getting up at 8 a.m. and reading it every day. And I
Wow.
think me doing that, because probably extended probably about a year and a half, I make my account of now reading stuff like this. I didn't really notice it then, but reading the Bible, which is probably one of the most like complex texts there is for etymology, really anything when it comes to how you approach a text, it kind of prepared me
Yeah.
to read certain other philosophers, and I know a lot of references that people make now in pop culture, and it really helped me like open my eyes to how complex reading could be. And it was one of the earlier books I read, so I think that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, that's huge. The Bible, especially, I feel like is kind of one of those books where, like, I had the privilege of, my parents sort of teaching me the Bible a little bit when I was growing up. But then I read it for myself when I was 19. Because, I mean, before I even got into reading, I became interested in, like, theology and religion. So the Bible was the first, like, really big book that I read on my own. And I think it made understanding every other story that I ever read after that
It's
make so much
perfect to
more
me.
sense.
Yes,
Yeah, because
yes,
it's like, oh, it's all saying the same thing. It's telling the same, like, the Bible is not only a collection of, like 66 different stories in a way, but, like, all of the different sort of just like tropes and themes and rhetorical devices and all the things that you see that inspired all the rest of the literature throughout the world, whether in the East, West, today, like, doesn't matter. You kind of see those recurring truths pop up. And I remember one of the first books, because like when I got into reading was also COVID. So that's interesting. Did you stop playing basketball because of COVID, or was that like you finished high school or college, or what happened?
yeah. So COVID was 2020. So
Yeah.
around 2020, I went to the Naval Academy for basketball, and then
Okay.
during that year, it was COVID mixed with the military. Man, I was over it. I was like, I had to leave after a year. It was either I left that year or I had to wait 5 years to leave, and I was like, dude, I'm going. So I went to West Georgia and
Oh
played basketball
wow.
for 4 years, and then around 2023, late 2023, early 2024, I forget it now, but I stopped playing basketball my last year in college. So I a full year of doing nothing, and then I started reading. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, this is better. Let me just keep doing this.
There you
I
go.
think that's common theme for a lot of us is we get to a certain point in young adulthood where maybe what we were doing we stop or fall out or can't do anymore, whatever the case may be, and then you're kind of left sitting like, what
What
the
do I
heck do I
become?
do?
Yeah.
What? Yeah,
Yeah.
what? Like there's this void that has to be filled, and I think it's great for people obviously to fill that with reading and philosophy and better works. There's a lot of things you can fall into that aren't so positive these days. So it's great to hear that that was kind of the impetus to get into reading, and I think a lot of us can kind of identify with that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. The first book that I read when COVID started, because like COVID started, I had, so I was firefighting in 2019, and then I decided I wanted to quit and like didn't know what I was going to do. So I had to go back to school to be like doing something, right? So I was taking online classes, and I took a philosophy class just as like a, to fulfill critical thinking requirements, whatever. And I actually got really interested in it. And so some of the books that the professor talked about in the class, like I picked up, like Plato's Republic was one of them. So I read that first. And then when COVID happened in February, that same year, and everything went online, I just like kept reading the books that would be assigned like to completion, and I was like, dude, this is so like something that I kind of always wished existed and just didn't know that it was out there because nobody really like talks about philosophy when you're in high school, you know? So you think that the only books out there are just like stories, and I'm like, like I already watched movies, like I don't need to read books, you know? But it's like philosophy is like not something you can anyways. Point is, that was what kind of opened my eyes to the fact that like, oh, reading goes a lot deeper than I initially thought. So then I was like, let me try regular books out again. Like, let me give that a shot. And the first book that I read, because I had, like I said, the Reader's Digest, I read The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Just like, it had the letter A on it. Something about it seemed like first in a series, like start here kind of thing. And so I read that, and you know, it was written in the 19th century. Like, it's a little dense. The language, but I ended up really liking it. And then I can't remember what I read after that, but I would just bounce back and forth, and I always loved the fact that I was constantly finding interplay between works of literature that become the classics. They also are very heavily infused with like philosophy, mythology, or references to other classics. That's one thing I noticed. Is like there's always that interplay. You know what I mean? What, in your journey, what was the thing that kind of like, what would you say was like the thing that brought it all together that made you want to start creating content about it? Like, what was the thing that made you want to be a catalyst to share?
Yeah, I think what it was for me is after I read Dorian Gray, I had absolutely no one to talk to about it with at all. And I went online, and it was cool hearing people's like opinions on it, and maybe YouTube and like forums. And it's a book that's been here since predates the internet. So obviously, since the internet started, you have stuff from 2008 coming to now about the same book. And I was like, I can't talk back to them without, like, if I respond to this comment that was made 10 years ago, they're not going to see my comment. So I was,
yeah, exactly.
So I went on TikTok, and there was this dude. Shout out, his name is Brady's Bookshelf. He was like the first person I think ever followed. And he just happened to be talking about books, and I was like, let me just ask him about it. So I was like, I went on the live, and I was like, yo, have you read Dorian Gray? He was like, yeah, I read it. You wanna talk about it? And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been looking for the last like 4 days. So I started DMing him about it, and he was like, you should make an account. So I ended up making an account, and I was like, this is way better. I can respond to a comment instantly. I can make a video about my 12-minute semi-coherent ramble about why I like Dorian Gray, and people can respond to it. It changed the game, man. Discourse changes the game.
Yes, 100%. I mean, like, that's the only reason that I think that my attendance at university for a degree in philosophy like even made sense in the first place is just because having to do philosophy on your own, it's a little bit of an echo chamber. There's not really a lot of you know what I mean?
It's been really hard.
It's difficult. So getting to be in class with people, and then the teacher says something, and you know, somebody raises their hand and answers. If you're not like looking at your phone, if you're actually paying attention, it's going to make you think something, and it's going to challenge the way that you actually understood whatever the author was saying. And like there was constantly just really good discussion going on, and that's why, you know, there would be, I'm not ashamed to say it, sometimes if like nobody was like speaking up in class and it was just the professor lecturing, I'm like, all right, I think I might bounce. But you know, like if the discussion is actually popping, like then I'm hanging out, of course. But yeah, I think I kind of lost my train of thought. We were talking about why we started creating content. That's right. I think, and I've said that before, that's also been my favorite thing about creating content, just like for literally whatever you want, and why I encourage people to do it is because you will just find your friends. You'll just find people who are like you, who like the same stuff as you. It's like the easiest way to do it. You don't have to go to the park or a bar or the gym and be like, hey, does anybody in here like these 5 things, and we can all like hang out and get along over this? It's like you could just make 5 videos, and then whoever comments and likes it, like you know that those are your people. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's such a
Yes.
hack. Yeah.
It's been great.
I think there's
It's been so great.
a good point. Like you said, you read this book and you wanted to talk to someone about it, so you made a video about it, and or sought out people who talked about it and then made content about it. It's like a lot of people who want to get into content creation, they're like, well, what should I talk about? How do I talk about it? How do I get into this niche? And it's like, what do you want to talk about? That is the answer. It's like, if the last book you read, if you want to talk about it to someone, make a video about it. It's that easy to start creating, and like Jonas said, finding your people, because it will eventually make its way into the niche of people who like to read or philosophy or whatever the case may be. And next thing you know, we've got 3 people sitting in a call because we started posting about our passions. So super easy. Just go with what you like.
Yeah, and off of that, not only do you get to like meet really cool people, but the opportunities that you may receive from creating content for whatever reason are incredible, because Dante, you just got like, explain this to me. You got a scholarship to go study at St. John's University in New Mexico because they saw your TikTok. They saw your book talk stuff.
Absolutely insane, man. Like, basically what happened was, and I'm so glad I ended up checking my DMs that day. Someone that he didn't even, I don't even think I even talked to him, but we had no connection at all before this. But he DM'd me, his name was Rod Reed. Shout out Rod, man. He said, yo, like, I'm in cahoots with St. John's, and they kind of wanted me to reach out to you, see if you want to come to the campus and go visit and just talk about it. I was like, sure, yeah, sure, man. So we end up going there, I think, 2 weeks after he sends me the DM. And
crazy.
I'm glad we're talking about discourse right now, because that's like the entire thing with St. John's, is that I've never actually let's actually back up a little bit. So for the last year and a half, I've been self-teaching philosophy, been trying to do it like since I started making my account. I've been trying to I take notes, and I have like a huge binder of notes. I annotate everything. I'll like, try and like, I have like an alt account where I try and debate people on. Like, I've been trying to do all the things.
Really?
All the
Oh
stuff.
shit! I didn't know that. I'm trying to get on that.
I've been trying to do all the stuff. But basically, I went to St. John's, and everyone there is just me. It's like multiples of me. Everyone there is talking about mythology, art, drama, and like classics and philosophy. That's all they talk about every day. And I was just like awestruck by it, man. Like, it's one of the best places I've ever seen.
It's like your TikTok audience in real life.
Perfect. I think that's what I said in my video. Actually, it's like, yo, it's literally all of you guys just in one spot. But when I went down there, the person that organized it, her name is Carol. It was kind of clear to me that she was trying to say, like, you should come here. Like, we're kind of, when I first got there, they kind of gave me a tour of St. John's, and I don't think anyone else got that day one. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that might be something. But when I left and I kind of reflected on it, I think we had all talked about it for probably about 2 days, and I was like, I think I could actually come here. So now we're working out a thing where it's kind of like a mix of like a scholarship work study, to where like I pretty much would be getting paid to market the school, but I'd be going there and just learning all day. That would be the entire thing. Sorry,
that's awesome. No, you're good. You're good. That's cool. It's like it's almost in a weird way, kind of like I'm not trying to equate it to a graduate degree, but it is kind of like that, where they're like, we want you at this school for your sort of like special skill, and we're willing to like teach you in the process. That's amazing. That's super cool.
It was so cool. One more thing is with that as well. It's like, it was a layer that made me realize that this could possibly be, like, not to attribute to something bigger, but like almost like divine timing. Because right now I'm currently reading Eastern philosophy, specifically Chinese, so like Confucius and Mencius and all the disciples of them. And when I got there, the first books I saw were the curriculum books, and I was like, why is every book that I'm reading right now in the curriculum that they're teaching? And I asked the person that ran the bookstore, I was like, is this just like a display or like, do they learn this? And they're like, it's a degree. Like, they're the Eastern philosophy degree. And I was like, dude, what am I doing? Now, like, I probably
Yeah.
would do, I think we decided I'm going to do the Western canon when I get there. But just the fact they
Cool.
even had it, like, I could have been doing all of this out of somewhere where they have classes that people will talk and have seminars. It's a great place. I've never seen nothing like it.
That's super cool. What made you what made you choose the Western canon? I probably would have chosen the same thing. I think it's just the most like kind of immediately gripping for me. Of course, like I do love my Eastern philosophy at times, and I think that like I took a lot of classes on like Latin American philosophy and South American philosophy and stuff like that. But like, what do you think it is specifically about the Western canon that drew you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it has to be logic. Logic to me is
I
probably
was
the
not
coolest.
expecting that answer.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's well, just another sphere as well. Like with my
Uh
content,
huh.
I read way more than I post about. Like I only post about more of the fiction reads or the more accessible works that I try and read. But I read
Mm-hmm.
a lot of more like pressing and more out there kind of like philosophy and try and get into that. I've been trying to like learn like some symbolic and like modal logic and such on my own.
Bros, the
It's
worst
it's
classes I ever took at
it's so
UCLA, but
hard. It
it
makes me
is
it
it
makes my
is
head hurt.
it is important, and it's
Oh
cool. It feels like you're learning a new language almost. You know, it's
no,
kind of like I've always equated like symbolic logic as almost like trying to learn a new language and how to write music at the same time. It's like, no, you're all good. You're using like literal
okay.
symbols to represent not even like sometimes sentences, sometimes ideas, sometimes like uh if and or sort of statements like, and it's all
Yeah.
like a it's like an entirely new language that you have to learn, but b it's like understanding how that works kind of makes you like you see like different patterns in just the way people speak in real life. It's
Yes.
like a new skill you kind of unlock, but it's
Dude,
insanely
you'll
difficult.
you'll see the world different. Like I think that's really why, because they learn. Also, another thing with the Western canon is that they learn Greek, and I'm trying to do that myself as well. Like
I know you're a
it kind
Greek
of all
mythology
like
guy.
messy up. Oh my gosh, it's we can definitely have a segment about that. But
That's gonna come up.
logic, yes. But like logic to me is something that's it could definitely be abused, and you have like Plato talks about the like the
Hmm.
sophist and persuasion oratories with Cicero, and it obviously can get bad. But I think
Hmm.
if you engage with logic in a way where both parties are trying to, okay, we're trying to come to a collective truth here, even though that's probably
Yeah.
impossible to come to in our temporal space. But let's say we both say, yo, let's try and get to like, so let's try and settle somewhere. If you don't use
Hmm.
logic, you to be talking past each other. You don't have to like use it as some kind of sword. You don't have to wield it like it's like a you're not trying to demean someone. But if you say, "Yo,
Right.
that's like that could be fallacious," now you don't use that. It can't exist in reality, so don't use it. Let's try and get somewhere where you can. And I think they have a
Hmm.
logic kind of seminar that they have every 2 weeks, I think, where it's a full seminar on logic in the Western canon. So like, I was like, yeah, I need to be there. I need to be there for that.
That's cool. Yeah, I always think about when it comes to philosophy, like, one of the most important things that you learn when you're in like a school setting studying philosophy is they tell you like you got to define your terms at the beginning, right? Like
Yes.
we need to, okay, what do we mean when we say this? What do we mean when we say that? It's very Jordan Peterson-y, but it's very important for philosophy. You have to define your terms. But the second thing that I don't think comes up a lot, but I think is important, is like you have to define the goal. Like, why are we having this conversation? Because sometimes it can be kind of lofty, like where it's just we're
Yes.
debating this topic, and it's like, okay, but what would a satisfactory conclusion like look like? Like, it doesn't need to be like what would a right answer be or something like that, but like what is going to kind of quell this situation? Because like you said, ultimately people, especially people who engage in debates, like we just had Jet Franzen. I don't know if you're familiar with him on our
Oh yeah,
last
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Yeah, so that episode will be out right before this one comes out. And he also spoke on the last podcast about how, if you're not engaging in a philosophical dialogue with someone who is also like acting out of, what did he say, Daniel? It was like a place of like good faith,
Good
basically.
faith, yeah, yeah. Kind of like you said, Dante, using logic as a sword versus trying to come to a good faith
Like a bridge.
understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. If that you can be very adept at logic or rhetoric or debating, but if your goal is just to win and make yourself look smart and the other person look stupid, why are you engaging in the first place?
Yeah.
It's not the goal I think we should be setting out when we have discussions with each other.
Yeah, I
And
think
yeah,
Plato
that's
said
kind of
if
what
you're
Jet was touching on.
yeah, famously said if you want to dunk on people, just play basketball. Like, you don't-
Like, I just don't. I've never
Basketball
seen
was
it
your
in something
passion.
like that. It was. I definitely love basketball to this day. But I don't know. Logic is a little cooler than basketball, man. But I definitely do think logic is. It's definitely hard to read sometimes. Like it's really dry stuff, but it kind of
Dude,
helps
it
you like
is.
helps you think better. Especially like that's why I think with the Western canon, it's smart that they have that as a class, because with like you can't read Aristotle and like now he's the one that gave you the laws, the three laws of logic we use, but you can't read like some of his later stuff and not know logic. You're just gonna be lost. And then also
Yes.
like theology, like I think you mentioned it earlier, but I'm reading a lot of Augustine and more so Aquinas. Like I'm more like Thomist in my theology.
Nice.
And
Super cool.
if you try and read Thomas Aquinas, you won't go anywhere if you don't know anything. Like I think all he does is define terms and make premises. If you don't know logic, you're just gonna be lost. And I was like, okay, let
Yeah.
me put down Aquinas and me pick up like this modal logic book and try and like at least like have some kind of wherewithal when it comes to this.
That is a perfect example of why when people say what books should I read, it's such a bad question because it's like, bro, pick up one book. If you're interested in it at all, it's going to lead you to 10 other books and those books are collectively going to lead you to 10 other ones. Like how long is your
100%.
your to be read list, you know? It's probably 1,000 books long
Oh,
because
I don't even know where it's at this
don't
point.
even know. Yeah,
Don't
because you
even
read
know.
one book. Like I remember when I read one of the first books I read when I started my kind of reading journey was Fahrenheit 451. And have you read that one?
Yeah, by Bradbury. It's pretty good.
Yep. And that was one of those books I read in like two sittings because it was just so good. And obviously it's about kind of like books in a way because they're trying to like get rid of books from society and burn them and these sorts of things. And the main character, I'm forgetting his name right now, but he's like
Montag.
Montag, yeah, Guy Montag. Thank you. Yeah, he's like constantly referencing great works, and he's mentioning things. And I remember when he referenced something from the Bible, because I knew the Bible, I was super excited. I was like, "Oh, fucking connections, links being made," you know. But he said all of these other things from other philosophers and other authors that I had never heard of before, and so I noted them all down. I was like, "All right, I need to read this next, and then this next, and then this next." It's like I just got 6 books from like one paragraph in one book. Like it's
100%.
truly endless. Do you ever recommend to people, because I'm sure people ask you all the time what books they should read. Do you give them any sort of direction on like chronology or themes or like what do you say to people?
Yeah. I think, man, the only book that I'm like notorious for it. The only book that I ever really recommend, if it's philosophy, I just say Last Days of
Oh,
Socrates.
okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
That's the only book because it just gives a perfect foundation for everything else. Plato is one of a kind, man. I really love
Is the
reading
Last
a lot of
Days, is
Plato
that
stuff.
like the Euthyphro and the
Yeah,
Apology
Euthyphro,
and
Apology, Credo, and Fade. And I
okay,
kind of just
nice.
like
Yeah.
tell them, yeah, just read. If you read this, you won't have to ask me anymore about what you want to read. Like what you just said is how I've always thought because
Yes.
I've never had to ask anyone, yo, what should I read? Like I think I read
There's too much
like
to
how I
read
got
to even be
there's
asking.
too much. How I got more into the Greek stuff is like when I was younger, I just happened to have there was 2 books I read a lot when I was young and it wasn't even like books really. It was like some makeshift copy of collected Bible stories. That was
Oh,
one.
interesting.
And the
Okay.
other one I had was like one of those books you get from I think it was Borders. It wasn't Barnes, it was Borders. It was like
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
Borders
remember
edition
Borders.
of a Borders edition of Greek mythology. And
Okay.
when I started reading, I thought back to like, yo, when I was younger, like I really loved Greek mythology and I loved the Bible. So we got touched on the Bible a little bit, but with Greek mythology more so, I was like, let me like read Homer then, or read some of the Greek playwright. Like if you have any interest at all, there's a whole lane for you to read. And I've
Yeah.
always been like almost put off by the question of, yo, what should I read? I'm like, dude, you don't even like you don't do you like do you want to read? Do you
Did you?
first,
Yeah.
first you
Like,
should want to
did you
read.
even
Like
Google? Yeah.
did you even try to like find it yourself? Like I'm not gonna tell you what you want to read, man.
Of course. Yeah. No, it's so true. Especially like you said, like if you're just interested in Greek mythology, like you probably already know you need to read Homer, and then you need to read like why can't I think of the name right now? Ovid. You know,
Ovid.
Metamorphoses,
Oh my
and
God.
like you'll pretty much get like all of the Greek mythological canon. There's another author. I know I'm forgetting the name right now, but. And then it's like, okay, if you're interested in the Roman mythology or Roman pantheon, then it's like you can read Virgil and you can read like
Yeah.
then you can read Dante. Like it's gonna lead you to
It's
the next
lined
thing
out
and the
for
next
you,
thing.
man. It's lined
Um,
out.
it's already lined out for you. And I also think that you too can just start with just like what's a book that you heard recently that interested you? Because sometimes I do think that like books come up in your life for very specific reasons. Like for example, I have a book club that I host on my Discord for a group of people, and we were reading That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis, and I finished reading the book when I was like laying in bed one night, but I wasn't tired, so I was like, shoot, like I need to pick something else to read. So I just like went through. I'm moving right now, like I'm staying in my sister-in-law's house, so like I just have like a bag of books that I brought with me, like assortment. And I was looking through, and there's this like book this thick. It's just titled Mythology by Edith Hamilton. Highly recommend it. It's
Mm.
very cool. But I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick it up. I'm gonna pick a cool story, and I'm gonna read it. And I was reading
Mm.
this story about the Norse gods, um, and there was this line in there that really struck me about how um, in Norse mythology, like evil wins out over good in the end, and this is something that's like known about
Mm.
Ragnarok. It's like prophesied. Like the Norse mindset is understanding that like evil triumphs over good at the end, but then there's a cyclical thing and the world restarts and yada yada. But I thought that was so interesting that like this mindset, which you would imagine might be kind of defeatist, is actually like what breeds heroism in these people. And I thought that that was so profound and like in the way that she worded it. So I highlighted it, and then the next day, I saw this reel on my page, which was today, that day, of Erling Haaland, Norwegian soccer player, saying that he's like he got asked a question about like how he feels about going up and playing France and Kylian Mbappe, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just excited that we're through. We're probably going to lose to them. They're probably going to win the whole thing. I'm just excited that we're through." And I was thinking, I was like, "Wait a second, this is exactly what I just read last night. Like it was
Yeah.
put in my like." Scope for whatever reason, and I made a video about it, and it's like popping off right now, mostly because people are upset that I'm like grasping at straws, but that's kind of what I do. But but like I just thought it was so interesting. It's like God just literally put that book in my bag for a reason. I had no intention of reading it, but then because I love reading and I wanted to read something, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna just read something from this, and it ended up inspiring me in a way that I would have never imagined. And now I have another book that I need to read because she referenced a few other stories in there. But anyways, yeah, so interesting. You can literally find anything. I wanted to touch on the Greek mythology thing though, because I feel like Greek mythology, like you said, like if I were to actually recommend any books to anybody, I would say like the Bible and then like Homer, like the Iliad and the Odyssey. I think that
Yeah.
those are like three. That's just like if you're like a Western person, like I think you need to read those just to understand like what has shaped your entire world, basically.
Everything you see. Those three books have changed everything you see, man.
It's
Especially
like
like
every story you read.
yeah, I think obviously like I think it's like well known that the Bible has the most adaptations and interpolations, like whether you see it or not, everything stems from a story in the Bible. But I would say like Homer is the same. It's the same way. Like I think Greek mythology is it's like the most fascinating thing in the world to me, man. Like I have like a few like Athena tattoos. You guys can't even see them. Hold on, I gotta show you guys.
Yeah.
Can you see this? This is
If,
Athena.
oh yeah, I can see that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have
Nice.
Oh, sweet.
I have three Athena tattoos because when I read her stuff, there was a book I had that only had her myths in it, and it changed how I read stuff afterwards because she's probably the most like symbolic and figurative, like most malleable
Iconic, yeah.
god or goddess there is. So
Yeah.
I was reading it and I was seeing her like wear so many hats of like the, like more battle strategy. She kind of like grounds logic in Greek mythology. Then there's like chastity. She's never like everything that she was kind of interacting with. She had a whole story for, and I was like, let me try
Yeah.
and take this same lens to like other stories. And I'm like, dude, I'm seeing it everywhere now. I see like the symbolic nature that Greek mythology had, especially like some of the playwrights, so like Aristophanes and Euripides, how they use the gods in their stories is unmatched. It's the same how every great writer has done after them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Sorry about that.
Oh, well, I don't want to interrupt you because I'm about to shift gears a little bit.
No,
So
please
do you
do.
have
Please.
more to
I was
say on
almost
Greek
going to kind of
mythology?
as well. Yeah.
Because I was going to ask, because Jonas asked about the Western canon, and we talked about Greek mythology and that kind of thing. But I'm kind of curious, because you said now you're reading Eastern philosophy, kind of Chinese Confucianism and all that kind of thing. I have kind of two questions. One, why you started getting into that specifically, and two, how has it been similar and different, the difficulty? Because I recently did a dive into Chinese history for a video, and I was surprised doing the research how different it was from like reading, for example, Roman history. There's just so many cultural concepts and things where it's like I don't have as much of a foundation to understand, so I have to go, okay, well now I have to research this, now I have to research this, now
Yeah.
You almost have to start from scratch.
just to
Yeah.
build a frame of reference, because it's not just copy and paste in another language. So I'm kind of curious as to your journey into the Eastern canon, if you will.
Yeah, sure. So the book that really got me into what I even got me into it kind of opened my eyes to this because before I had read in Confucius, I knew it existed, but it was like so far in the periphery that I didn't know it was even there to kind of interact with. But I read Carl Jung, or is it Jung, I think it's Jung. But
Yeah,
I think
Carl
it's
Jung
pronounced
has
young, I think.
okay. Let's just hope it's Young. I'm gonna keep saying Young. Hopefully, that's how it's saying.
Someone will correct us if it's not.
I'm
But
well, it happens to me.
They'll
happens to me
correct us
every video.
regardless, bro.
yeah,
Every
even if we're
video.
right, they'll correct us. But
Yeah. But I was reading. It's either Man's Search for Soul, or I think Man and His Symbols. But
Man and His Symbols, I have that book. Yeah.
that one. He references the I Ching or the I Ching or the Book of Changes, which is like like the metaphysical system for the Eastern canon. And he referenced it in a way where it was like fragmented. And I was like, well, how does it? Because whenever we think of metaphysics for like Western canon, so like Aristotelian kind of metaphysics, it's very like unified. You know exactly where to go. It's a very straightforward. It's hard. It's a complex book, but it's very straightforward if you follow it.
Yeah.
If you read the Book of Changes, it's like a system built on hexagrams that almost embraces contradiction and like movement and stuff can be opposed. And I was like, this makes sense for Carl Jung's psychology because he was talking about more fragmented self. But I was like, I need to read whatever that is. I need to read that. So I tried to pick up the go back to what we were just saying though. TBR is actually infinite if you just pick up one book, man.
Yeah.
But I started reading the Book of Changes, and I couldn't really fully grasp what I was even like reading, and I was like, I need to read more of like the people that study this commentary on this. And Confucius has a thing called the Ten Wings, which is a commentary on the Book of Changes. Well, it's attributed to Confucius. No one really knows the author, but it writes the same way as Analects is spoken, so everyone kind of attributes to Confucius.
He's the
But I was like,
Eastern
this is
Homer.
great.
If you don't know, you just chalk it up to Homer. So
Yeah, it's Confucius, man. But I read the Ten Wings and I was like, okay, I'm kind of understanding it now. So then I read the Analects by Confucius, and after that it was like, because after Confucius is the lineage is completely clear. So it's like Mencius, Zunzi, Zhuangzi, it's very easy.
Right.
But that's really what got me into it. And then you touched on the difference between Western and Eastern canon. It's like almost diametrically opposed. It's almost opposite. Now, I do believe that there's like one ideal of truth everyone's trying to get to. So I kind of try and make connections with what I'm reading. But it's really hard sometimes because it would almost be like Plato or Aristotle or anyone from the antiquity, I guess. everyone would just be like, yeah, study with reason and logic and sit with everything, debate and really try and figure it out. And the Confucius will say, you know, actually don't talk about it at all. Actually, only think about it with yourself and don't talk about it. And I'm like, how do I even remedy this? But they
Yeah.
have a much more practical utility view on philosophy than I would say the Western canon does. Like in the West, it's more so like you have philosophy that do give you stuff about like how to live, but it's more so like let's try and like prove God through the necessary of the contrary, like on some crazy stuff. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
they'll just say like, and then Confucius has this ideal called like filial piety, or how you treat your elders, or how you treat your parents.
Hmm.
And that is more so there, like, yeah, how are you treating your parents today? Instead of let's try and prove God. It's like more like how are you going to live your life the next days? And that's kind of the biggest takeaway I've taken from Eastern canon so far. I've read 4 or 5 books in the canon, but all of them have the same ideal because they're all Confucian, at least that I've read so far.
It's fascinating. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot about the Eastern canon or as much Eastern history in general as I would like to. But I saw, and I don't know how much Chinese culture, philosophy, etc., influenced Japan. Someone was saying that Shintoism in Japan, there is such like a reverence in divinity in everything they do, such as you sweep the floor. It's an act almost of prayer or like divine.
Hmm.
It's spiritual in and of itself, and it's very fascinating. There's this whole other world of how you view the world, how you view philosophy, and it just made me wonder. It's like, can I do the same thing next time I have to sweep the floor? Can I? I can think of it as like a spiritual act. It just kind of is a little paradigm shift. So I do think that's all fascinating. Kind of supports what you said about it being more how do you apply this in your day to day life as opposed to doing the big, giant, abstract questions,
Yeah,
which of
definitely.
course has its.
Since I've been reading more of the Eastern philosophy, a lot of it is historical. Like tradition is the biggest thing for Confucius. That's like his biggest outside of
Mm.
filial piety, which is like I said, respecting elders. Holding tradition is like his biggest thing as well. Like that's kind of what he's known for. Like whenever I think it was the Han Dynasty adopted Confucianism as their kind of like way to live. And it brought
Hmm.
back like a ton of tradition from history because that was kind of his biggest thing. But reading a lot of more Confucian in thought philosophers and thinkers, they talk about history probably as much as they talk about philosophy. Like probably every other chapter is like a historical breakdown of how they got to where they were at. They just have so much reverence for where they came from. It's fascinating. Something I've never
Yeah.
seen in the Western canon.
It's interesting. I read recently a philosopher. His name is Rene Guénon. He's a French philosopher, um, and he wrote this book called "The Crisis of the Modern World." And I'm like paraphrasing his quote insanely, but he basically says something along the lines of like the crisis of the modern world or the crisis of modernity is really just like the crisis of the West because we have like lost this reverence of tradition. We don't really like have real touch with our roots because we're so focused on like progressivism and like trying to get somewhere new and change and change and change. Whereas like the East has always held on to their traditions and their roots. And the only way that like the West can really find itself is almost by looking to the East and seeing like what they have lost, not in their necessary like their tradition or culture, but just in their structure, their reverence of their tradition. Which is something that, like you said,
Mhm.
like the East is like they're huge on. You can see it in their history, in their philosophy. Like you said, their philosophy is almost based on their history, you know?
No, 100%.
Yeah.
It's beautiful stuff, man. Something like that was probably my biggest shock when reading it because I thought I
Mm-hmm.
honestly picked up a text with too much commentary. Like I read the analects
Mm-hmm.
twice. The first one I read was just the aphorism kind of statements Confucius
Right.
says. But then I read a new translation, the Penguin one, with Anna Ping Ching that wrote the commentary, and it was like the book went from 180 pages to like 330. And I was like,
Yeah.
what did you I was like, what did you add? And I was realizing like the reason why I felt drier the second time was because it was all history. But then I kind of switched my mentality halfway through. I was like, well, let me kind of just like sit with this and like maybe it's important. That's why she put it in here. And the
Right.
history just provides you like why Confucius says like learn this way. It's because three people disposed from him said learn this way, and it's been working. So why would you change it? And they kind of like adapt what's already been done. And it's just like I've seen nothing like it, man. I'm really enjoying it so far. I need to pick up a I think the next book I'm gonna read is the one on statecraft. I forgot the title. I can't pronounce any of these titles, but I gotta pick that one up soon.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Gotta pick
I've
that one up.
always thought because like people ask me like if I got into history first or philosophy first and that kind of thing, and it almost kind of happened like hand in hand. I always had like an interest in history, but I think the thing that I always found the most interesting about history is like I just always wanted to know throughout history like how similar were people to me, like how much can I as a person actually relate to history, and I think that knowing how people think throughout history is kind of the thing that like tunes you in. Like when
Yeah.
you read Homer and you see like all of the sort of heroic themes throughout something that in the modern world today we would probably regard as being like uncivilized or barbaric or that sort of thing. It kind of teaches you like the deeper things that you still feel within yourself that resonate with the story, but also like the complete detachment that you have from a world that existed over 2,500 years ago. You know what I mean? And it kind of like you said, it gives you a frame of reference because it's like you don't just read Homer and go, oh, these people are fucking crazy. Like you read Homer and then you have to understand, okay, what was the Bronze Age like? And then you go back and you start to learn about like Bronze Age culture and civilizational structures, social hierarchies, government, those sorts of things. And you're like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Like this completely adds up. And then you can start to see why people would have revered a figure like Achilles, for example. And I think it's those sorts of things that kind of like make the characters that are seemingly like so detached from reality like really come to life for a lot of people. And because we're missing so much of that nuance in regular everyday life, like we kind of get buried in these stories. And I mean, it almost feels like it's not even like an escape from reality. It's almost like an escape to reality from
Mm.
what we experience on you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting you touch on the interplay between history and philosophy, because like when I was reading the Chinese history episode that I was doing, I read about the emperor who made Confucianism the state religion, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, I've heard of Confucius. But then I was thinking, I was like, wait, what does that actually mean? Like, what? Why did he make it the religion?
Yeah.
What is Confucianism? And then you were kind of saying, Dante, it's like you're reading his work, and then there's all this historical commentary, and you're like, wait, I kind of have to understand the history to see where the
Yeah.
philosophy is coming from. There's like you can't separate the two
Yeah.
and take them in isolation. And Jonas, you're just talking about the Iliad, and there's the mythological element. And for me, mythology
Yep.
was definitely the gateway into both history and philosophy. Reading the Greek myths as a kid, and those stories are very accessible and very, you can identify with them deeply, even though they're in a completely different time with gods and monsters and things. The lessons are very accessible to the average person, and I think that's a great way to kind of start to synthesize all these things so you can bring it, like you said, as a portal to reality as opposed to away from it.
Yeah, that's kind of like almost the point of mythology, right? If you look back on it, you're like, oh, this is how people who are continuously existing throughout history are able to convey their philosophical ideas and their framework of the world without having to get down to like the nitty gritty, dry, bare bones philosophy. Because nobody really gives a shit at the end of the day. Like a lot of people are not going to pay attention if you start talking about philosophy. Like people are going to tune you out. But if you say, well, actually, the reason that we are this way and the reason that we think this way is because the gods did, you know what I mean? And then you kind of explain it through that. And it's also just like humans live through stories. Like we're narrative-based creatures. Like our life is a story. That's why we love movies. That's why we love books. Like I said, I mentioned in my book club we just finished reading the Out of the Silent Planet trilogy by C.S. Lewis, and it's science fiction, so it's like a fictional narrative with made up characters, made up scenarios, but it's all rooted in philosophy. And then I realized at the end of reading it, I was like, he has just created his own mythology in the same way that Tolkien did when he was talking about Numenor and Middle Earth and all of these things. Like, that's the only way that you can create a synthesized medium where you can trace things throughout history with philosophical themes and make it all make sense. Like, there has to be a myth behind it, you know? A narrative.
No. I think, like, how I kind of looked at mythology, because, as you guys are saying, history and mythology are almost, you have to take them both for what they are. And, like, seeing a lot of the gods and goddesses be patrons of certain cities, to where like the city will kind of adopt the goddess or god because what they represents how the city is. I think Jonas has a video on that, and that's one of the first videos I saw that I was like, he's the greatest. Like, he's my favorite creator. But
I appreciate it.
I think when I was reading a lot of mythology, that was the biggest thing for me as well. I also revere both of you guys for like how you guys attack history, because it's something I need to do better with. A lot of history I know has just been from, like, I'm pretty good with visual arts, so like, you know, when Raphael was painting, I know what was going on then. Or things like political stuff, to where when this event happened, I know what happened then. But I think if I have a better grasp on history, there will be just way more for me to look into when it comes to literature. So I actually have a question for both of you guys about like how you guys research, because I need to get better with it. So how do you guys like research history? I'm pretty good with primary sources. I'll go find the original books, but anything extended from that, I kind of need some guidance.
Interesting. I kind of do. You want to go first, Dane? I've kind of got an answer.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it, because kind of like you said, the way I like to approach history, because you can, like you said, you can look at like the political events, or like a war happened in blah blah blah, but I like to approach it from like a personal story. It's like, so I try to find like personal accounts or sources as close to the events as I can, to see, so I can almost like put myself in the shoes of this event, where it's like, this man lived this life, he participated in these events, but it's like a personal story woven through. And I think that makes, at least the way I do history, more accessible to my audience, because it's less of a history lesson and it's more kind of like Jonas said, storytelling. People like a good story. There's action, there's drama, there's romance, there's tragedy, very human elements to these things. And also, like you said, I'm a very visually minded person. I need kind of like a visual framework of how things looked. You can't just tell me about an ancient city and give me its name and how long it lasted. It's like, I need to see what the city looked like, what the people wore. So I curate a lot of historical art, people who draw history and that kind of thing. And that kind of leads me to, okay, what are they depicting here? Why are they wearing this? How does that play with their religion, with their way of waging war, all of these kinds of things? So it's kind of like we were saying with the books. I just get down these rabbit holes, and then it's like, okay, I've got to read this now. Now I found this article. Now I found this video. But I try, I guess, ultimately to make my historical content as much of a storytelling exercise and as much of a personal exercise as I can, because that's how I like to interface with history.
Yeah. Yeah, for me personally, I think my interest in history, like I said, I'm a very self-centered person, and so I always wanted to know like how can I relate to people throughout history, or like where do I fit in history and those sorts of things, because like I always felt a draw to these stories. Like I've mentioned it kind of started with Greek mythology. Like I watched Clash of the Titans with my dad when I was like 7 years old or something, and those images of just like the Greek aesthetic and like Medusa giving me nightmares until I was 11 years old, like all these things just stuck with me
that's
so
hilarious.
hard. Yeah, no, genuinely, like I had like like I yeah. Anyways, it's just that was my sleep paralysis demon with Medusa in like the 1960s version of Clash of the Titans, whatever, terrifying CGI, but yeah, so. I think that the aesthetic of it was the first thing, and I was always just kind of like, what, like how far removed am I from this thing? And like I wanted to learn more about it. But I think what really interested me in everything was like the culture of different eras of history, and then ultimately that leads you to like cultural anthropology. And like I said, I always wanted to see where I fit in history. So selfishly, I started with like, okay, what's my ancestry? Like, who are my ancestors that I can trace throughout history? And so when I was like 18, I got super into like genealogy, and I found out that my aunt, she kept a really concise record of like all of our ancestors all the way back to northern Germany, like in the 1800s. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I want to go deeper on this, and like, cause like, I was like, I didn't know I was German. Like, nobody ever told me that growing up, And so then I did like the ancestry.com thing, 23andMe. I got like super obsessed with it. And then I just kind of kept going deeper, and I was like, okay, well, I want to learn about this population, this population. So I would learn about like the different cultural, anthropological eras of history, and then that would just lead me down a rabbit hole. Like, okay, well, if like the German people practice this form of paganism, and it's the same thing as Norse paganism, they're ultimately like culturally they're the same people. Where do they come from? And then you find out that they come from a place that's like north of the Black Sea in like the Eurasian steppe area. And so that's when like that kind of became like a big focus of my content, was like the migration era and like where all these people came from. So it was the same as like we were talking about with like the TBR list. Like you learn one thing about one culture and you're like, where's that come from? And then it's a completely separate culture further down in history, and it just keeps going and keeps going. But as far as like what I try to do with my content and how my research goes, I feel like because I obsessively research these things in my free time because I'm interested in learning more about myself and my relation to the world, that teaches me so much about different cultures throughout history that whenever I hear something or see something that reminds me of that, I like make this pattern recognizing connection to that thing, and I'm like, how do I grasp at straws and make this connection here? Like like I just talked about today, like with Erling Haaland saying he thinks he's going to lose the World Cup. I'm like, that's so Norse pagan. Like he doesn't even understand, but it is, And the same with like I saw the Barbie movie, and I saw Ken getting like super obsessed with horses and stuff, and like the way that like horses represent the patriarchy, and I'm like, bro, it's the most Proto-Indo-European thing I've ever heard. Like, because they like domesticated horses, and they were the patriarchal society that came in and invaded all of the matriarchal agrarians. There's controversy over this, but it is those sorts of things.
You made a video about that, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I had someone swear up and down that I made a video about that.
Dude, that happens to me all the time.
I was like, dude, I think you're thinking of Jonas. I don't remember making this video.
Yeah, I said I said that the Barbie movie was like insanely historically and mythologically accurate, and then like I kind of talked about how horses represent the patriarchy. And again, that's one of those things where people are like, dude, the Barbie authors were not fucking thinking of the Proto-Indo-European Yamnaya people when they wrote that. And I'm like, I know, but subconsciously there is a deeper truth there that you can strike at any way you want. It's going to be true because that's where it comes from. And I'm interested in those things. Like like I said, I'm obsessed with understanding how people thought throughout history because people have always been trying to like get at ultimate truth. And obviously there's no way to arrive at ultimate truth, but I think that mythology is a really good vector because it's like a collective truth that everybody has, whether or not Odin and Thor or Athena and Zeus like ever actually existed or like had an influence on people's everyday lives. Like their essence to a degree most certainly exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It influenced people and stories throughout history. So like in a way, I can't remember who exactly said this, but essentially like mythologies, if they're not necessarily true, they become true over time. And I think that that's almost just as important as whether or not they are true. And it also is very important to curate your own life mythology for that reason, because whatever you believe about the world and what you believe about yourself ultimately becomes true.
Yeah, you guys are, man. You guys are so next level. I love it, dude. Oh my gosh.
But I hope that
I've been watching a lot of your content, man. I've been watching both of you guys' content a lot. I've been watching Jonas since I started my thing, but like, damn, I've been watching a lot of your stuff recently because I've been trying to get more into history, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's like it's so vast. It's kind of the same with philosophy. So like, maybe I need to be a little less hard on people that ask me where to start with philosophy.
Yeah,
Because kind
I
of
get it.
that's
I
how I
get
hit
it.
the history. Because like I'm obviously it's more of like a you read one thing, you'll figure it out, and I
Yeah.
think I know that. I just don't know like where to go. But I
Do
think
you
Yeah,
know
it's-
do you know like do you know like who your ancestors are and like where they come from, that kind of thing? Their like cultural origins?
no, I might do
That
that.
could be a good place
I
to
think
start.
I think I might start there and kind of just like try and navigate. I think
Yeah.
something before I lose, I wanted to touch on this. I think Dane had mentioned about the visual arts. I think as I've been hearing you guys talk about how you guys view history, how you attack history, I think what serves that same purpose for me when I do research on my own is I've been fascinated with visual arts and art history since I was like 14.
Yeah.
And that kind of serves the same purpose for me because when I see The Last Supper or when I see like a great painting like Ecce Homo or I have to know what was going on here because especially
Yeah.
like in times of like the Baroque periods and the Renaissance, that one like Raphael or Botticelli, whoever was painting at the time, it wasn't just his mind making this. Like the entire community would say, "We're gonna get this one savant to paint what we all are thinking," kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a cultural representation
yes,
of the
all of
collective
them,
consciousness. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is why I absolutely love that period of time because they really embrace the savants of the city. Not just with
Yeah.
painting. If you look at any architecture or anything when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
people doing things, if you're really good at it, they would almost like adopt you as like you do this and everything we're thinking.
Yeah.
If
They
you can
would.
make it
Yep.
into something, you do that. So especially when it comes to like the religion and mythology stuff that's bigger ideas. I look at a painting and I'll kind of track what was going on with it and why people thought this was important. And it gets to way more nuanced than just like Ecce Homo resembles revealing the man, revealing Christ. It's way more like, why is Pontius Pilate leaning down like this? It gets that nuance
Yeah.
to where like now it's a whole thing you can kind of track. And that's kind of served the same purpose as mythology does for you guys. That's in my view, like art has really changed how I've seen history. Especially
Yeah.
when I realize that it becomes like almost the patron deity for them. Whenever this painting becomes something huge, now they see like, yeah, we enlisted Michelangelo to do this for us. Now we see ourselves in this painting or this statue. Like,
Yeah.
that's
And it
kind of how I've been
becomes like a
tracking it.
piece of the like like I went and visited Italy a few years ago and I got the chance to go to the academy and see Michelangelo's David,
Statue of David.
and it's like,
Oh my gosh,
dude,
I would have
it
passed
has
out.
it has a spirit. It's genuinely, it's one of those things where you just sit there. It's like, it's not like you're walking through a museum. Like you just sit there and you can spend hours like hanging out near that thing because it's got this like it's got this it's like this gravitational pull towards it. Like, you're seeing something that has not only like existed for so long and is just like magnificently beautiful, but was so culturally significant that it's like when you look up the Renaissance on Google or Florence or Italy or something, sculpture, whatever. It's like that's
Yeah.
the thing that pops up. It's like it has such a strong spirit. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, like the aesthetic is hugely important. Like that's if something doesn't like call to you, then you're not going to be able to like sit down and like force yourself to read the history. But I saw this building and I saw the academy and I saw and so then like I became obsessed with learning the history of the Da Vinci, or not Da Vinci, the Medici family, and like learning about like how they created the banking system, and like they were the
Yep.
patron commissioners of Florence, and like they built this Renaissance era city and like all these things. And then you learn a little bit about like, the history, but it starts with looking at David, you know.
Yes, that's really how it was for me as well. Like seeing, especially those bigger works. I think another thing as well is that how art kind of looks or kind of plays a part into what I do now is how like the visions you see of the Divine Comedy in your head, or the Bible as well. Don Quixote is another book, but Gustave Doré did illustrations for all of these works, like fully. Paradise Lost
Oh
is
wow.
another one, and how I after I've seen all of his drawings, I can't read the comedy without seeing them. And like
Yeah.
I think that's how it is for history as well. Like whenever I think of like whenever I reread, because I reread the Gospels a lot. Like I just think they're like the most insane thing ever. But whenever I read the passage about Pontius Pilate like revealing like the King of the Jews, revealing Christ the first time, I can't not see Ecce Homo in my head by Cesare, that painting. Like to
Yep.
me, everything now is like I have these pictures in my head of that's were culminated by these giant communities that said we're going to enlist Cesare to do this, and now
Yep.
and whenever I'm reading these works, it's inseparable from the art. It's beautiful to me, man. Art is so cool to me, or visual arts are so cool to me.
It makes me wish, and this is where I would ask, I'm like, how do I get into art? Where I wish I had more of like a technical knowledge, because sometimes I'll be trying to like I'll put up a work and I'll want to like visually explain it, but I don't know any of the techniques or anything. So I'm like, see, this looks cool. It looks cool.
Just look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah, because I don't, I can't explain, for example, how Michelangelo painted or what techniques he used or why his paintings look so good. I don't have the knowledge base to describe it in that way. But when I look at it, like you said, it's just this like feeling of like,
Yeah, it's
wow,
overwhelming, man.
it's just awing, and it's cool to think too in a way because they're depicting biblical events. It's like these people held the Bible in such reference, which by their time was already over 1,000 years
Yes.
ago,
Yeah.
Way
and
insane.
they were inspired by their faith and those words to create this wonderful art that continues to inspire us to go back to that faith. And it's just like this feedback loop of looking back, getting inspired, and carrying it forward for the next.
Yeah, I think just to touch on what you were saying, I actually plan on making videos on art history and like more
Nice.
visual arts. I wanted to have, I don't know if I'll make another account or maybe just do it on my one I have now, but I think it could be something that wouldn't be too far off that really all of our audiences could kind of interact with because it's already there. It's like
Nobody
if you're
dislikes
reading,
art.
yeah. Whenever you read Homer's Odyssey or the Iliad, like people have been adapting these works in visual capacities and for thousands of years. It's been going on for years and years and years. I think like that could be a cool sphere to kind of touch on, especially like
Yep.
technicality, like why they chose to do certain things. Like why would you only varnish this part of the painting or these few people? Why would you give them more shine in post after you make it? Like stuff, especially when that's why museums are so like whenever you have like any kind of tie to art at all, going to a museum is like a completely different sphere now. Because you're like you get close enough to see it, you can see like why is this person's technique, why he painted him in circles instead of regular strokes, and it shows like more like motion. They move when you walk around, the light hits off differently. Like these people were geniuses, man. Like it blows
Dude,
my mind. It blows my
if I
mind every
if I
time I
could
think
give a
about it.
shout to a book that you may have not read yet, are you familiar with Dan Brown's work? Have you ever read the Da Vinci Code or anything like that?
I haven't read the Da Vinci Code. He has a lot of
All right,
books, right?
so
He wrote like a ton.
he's got a ton of books specifically for that like series, the Da Vinci Code series. The main character's name is Robert Langdon. He's got I want to say six now. and I just read the sixth one. It just came out last year. But that was one of the first books that I would say Dan Brown is the reason that I got into like mythology, history, like properly, because I was, like I said, I got interested in philosophy. I always kind of had like a baseline interest in history and kind of in mythology too, by way of like theology and just sort of like the aesthetics of ancient Greece and
proxy.
stuff. But I didn't really actually know anything about it. When I started reading Dan Brown's books, he's huge on art history. Because to give a quick rundown for nobody who's ever read the series, Robert Langdon is a professor of symbology at Harvard. He teaches symbology, and obviously symbolism exists in all mythologies and just like art and everything, right? And so he basically defeats the bad guys and saves the day because one person will like hire him to crack a code that the bad guys are like using to try and destroy the world, basically, and he always saves the day. But the way that he does it is by like decoding the symbols in paintings, by knowing like the history behind when statues were built and like what they represent, and like they face this way because the summer solstice, the sun shines on it in such a way. All these things, and all of the things that he talks about in the book, other than the actual story structure, they're all true. So when I went to Italy and I went to Rome and Florence, he's got one book based in Rome and one book based in Florence. I went to all of the spots that the characters went to in the book to see the things, and they're all there, and they all and represent the things that he talked about in the book. And that's when I was like, dude, these artists and these authors like Dante and Homer and Virgil, like, they were all so divinely inspired that they incorporated all of these like things that you would never know or recognize unless an expert was telling you about.
Yes.
That's when I was like, dude, it's endless. Like, how do I get to the bottom of this and like learn all about it? And then I realized you need a holistic understanding of the history, the mythology, and all of the philosophers of that era. So that's where I kind of have like my overlap, and I try to intersect all those things. But please read Dan Brown. It's a really good series.
That sounds insane. I think I need to get into more fiction anyway. I might pick that up just for Jonas, man. Just for Jonas.
Angels and Demons is the first one, and it takes place in Rome. Fantastic. The Da Vinci Code is the second one in the series. It's obviously the most popular. If you get to it, you'll see why. It's just like, it's kind of a perfect story. But all of them are so good. There's one, the third one actually takes place in D.C. It's called The Lost Symbol. Yeah, and that was what makes me want to visit D.C. because I know all of these like little things to look for throughout the city now.
Yeah. No, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like symbolism and representation, like that's another reason why I love mythology so much. It kind of like shows, for example, you guys know the story of like Eros and Psyche. One of the more famous Greek mythology stories. You can just read that as like they're just depicting the gods and mortal women, but you can kind of also kind of look at it as Eros being representative as like, you know, like love itself, and like love is trying to capture the mind because Psyche represents the mind. That's where we get the word from. So now like you read it and it's like love trying to capture the mind, and it's like love tells the mind not to like reveal, like it's a whole new way of reading the text. So like symbolism is. And now getting back to art history, like I think it's been said multiple times, Da Vinci's Last Supper, let's say you've never read the Gospels one time. You don't know any of the people, and you just know Christ is in the middle. You can look at the painting and like know what like the characters of the like, for example, Judas is the only one not looking at Christ in the painting.
Or like his face is turned away.
Peter's holding a knife. Like you know who these people are and kind of what they represent just by looking at the painting. To me, like stuff like that makes me want to just sit in museums all day and like I don't really understand it yet. I'm missing. It's on me. I'm missing something. Like they didn't mess up. They sat at this canvas for 3 weeks with hundreds of thousands of brushstrokes. Like I'm the problem here.
It's kind of fascinating you mentioned that. For example, in medieval churches with the stained glass windows that depict various scenes from the Bible. For the average peasant who couldn't read on their own. They're
Yes.
getting obviously they're getting sermons from their priest, but they have the words, but they also have these glass depictions of the events and something like Christ on the cross or what have you. Have to imagine how visually powerful that was for somebody
Yep.
whose only depiction was the words they heard and then what
I've
they
never thought
draw
about
up in
that.
that glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just it's cool to think about. It's like that's how powerful a still image can be.
One of
It
the most
encapsulates what happened
Wow.
and what was important. And like you said, looking at, I mean, that's the Renaissance, but like the Judas is looking away. It's like someone can look at that and intuitively understand the themes, even if they don't know exactly what's going on in the picture.
Right, or the exact words of the story. Like you said, you can grasp the overall theme from the images. One of the most common things that you'll see if you go into Orthodox Christian churches is they usually have all of the events beginning from the birth of Christ to his resurrection and ascension into heaven in a circle, so that you can see it like around the entire church. Like the birth will be over here, and then you'll see like his baptism, and then you'll see him calling Peter, and then on and on and on and on all the way to his death and then his ascension. So you can see the entire gospel story just in pictures around the building. You don't even need to know a word of the Bible, and you can see the whole story.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they always build the churches in the same way, so that it's built like a cross, where the people like stand in the middle, and then the top of it where the sacrament is done is at the head of Christ, because Christ is the head and we are the body, and those sorts of things. And so it's like it's always like everything has a specific reason and a purpose, but it's built in a way where it's like it's almost naturally attuned to what the human can innately understand. You don't need to have any level of intelligence or literacy to be able to understand it.
Huh. I'd never heard that about Orthodox churches before.
Yeah, it's also why they are so big on iconography, because they think it helps in worship if you have something to kind of like you said, like you're reading. Excuse me, drinking too much Coke Zero. You're reading Dante Alighieri, and you're reading about the Divine Comedy, and like you already have the images in your head, because an artist took the time to be able to convey it to people who are not literate and would never be able to read the book. And now you have the sort of like ability to more deeply invest yourself into that story, because now you have both. And it's kind of the same thing. Like in Orthodoxy, they believe that if you're able to look at an image of Christ as you're worshiping, then you're able to worship harder. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a force.
No, I think that's a big thing as well. Kind of like the image you have in your head of something could definitely change how you interact with it. I think the two things I want to say. The first thing is that just for like, I see why Orthodoxy would kind of put that. For example, I do go to a Greek Orthodox church.
Oh, super cool. I did for a long time.
Yeah. But kind of the first thing that I kind of realized in talking to people that went there is that whenever I thought of like Christ, whenever I was praying, it was more so like the depictions I saw, growing up, or maybe nothing in my head, just like kind of the ideal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I went there and talked to people that I started like, they specifically pointed out like in Revelation when he talks to John, and he's like, the feet of fire and he's light. There's one of the most insane descriptions of anything.
Tongue is a sword.
Oh my God, tongue is a sword. Yeah, like when I think of praying now, that's the image I have in my head of like I'm praying to an all powerful deity. Like I pray harder now. Like I think better. Like my spirits are lifted because it's not praying to something that's kind of dull in my head. And then the other thing I want to say with that is touching on like Gustave Doré having all the drawings for the Divine Comedy. I think it's like a perfect merge of the two, because, for example, if you look at like whenever Virgil first takes Dante down, and the picture where you guys have probably seen it with like Virgil like this, and Dante is like kind of hiding. Whenever I read that canto in the comedy, I have this still image in my head of like what's going on, but it's almost like this still image because our brains are powerful. It like moves. Like I can for the entire canto now. That's the image I have in my head. or like whenever I read like Sappho's paintings and the Death of Sappho painting by Selva, I'm now reading it, seeing her move in my head. Even though that's the lens, the still image was the lens, I can now move it in my head because my brain is working. I'm reading the words and it's moving. Like, dude, interacting with media, art, like literature, it's one of the most fascinating things that's really opened my eyes to like what the world can do, what humans can do. Like,
Yeah.
it's beautiful
It's
stuff.
I saw this video of it took like Renaissance paintings, like you know that painting of Satan when he's like kind of like crying and
I
he's
have
Yeah,
it like
like
right
Lucifer,
now.
yeah.
It's literally in my
um,
background. I'm looking at it right now.
and it takes that painting and a few others and it lines it up with scenes in Revenge of the Sith, the Star Wars movie, where it's
Oh,
like
fun.
Anakin when he's like kind of hiding his eyes, and it matches it with that depiction of Lucifer. And it's
Mhm.
hard to imagine consciously or subconsciously that when they were making that film, that imagery they put into motion. And
Yep.
obviously, it's a
Yes.
Star Wars movie. It's not a depiction literally of Lucifer, but it's kind of putting that art into motion into another art form. And kind of like you said, it just like carries. It's so cool to think about how art can do that for people and inspire people to reinterpret and reinvent and reuse it, and it just it's just fascinating once you start picking up those pieces and you can see it in other media. It just it's almost overwhelming how interconnected everything is.
Yeah, I think the role of the artist is really important, man. Especially for that reason. Like, I had never even thought about the whole aspect of someone that really couldn't read, which and that opens my entire world up to why I love it so much. I love it even more now. Then, like
Yes,
around the
it's
time
such
that
an
I'm talking
honor.
about, like the Baroque, yeah, it's like with the Renaissance and the Baroque periods where these people were barely literate. Them seeing like a Renaissance painting is probably like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't even read the words. Now I have this entire thing I can latch onto. That's
Yeah.
fascinating, man.
It's kind of
I
interesting now because everyone is so literate and our buildings are very
Blank.
you
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're very utilitarian. It's like, is it cheap to make? Does it, have space for lighting and electricity? It's very like function and cost saving oriented.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, yeah, it's almost a complete inversion. I didn't even think of the fact, like, yeah, we can all read now, and the
Yeah.
world is just like,
Well, without
like,
getting too political, obviously, like you could say that they're doing it to purposefully like uninspire you because like it's just so like soul sucking when you just see a black a gray box with no soul, no spirit, no design, nothing. And it's not like you can't do it. Like you could just throw a mural up. You could put ridges in the columns. You could do something to spice it up and make it nice, and probably won't take that much out of your budget. But it's important to think about the fact that like yeah, in this age where we are super literate, instead of taking that for granted, we should use that as like a superpower, which is ultimately one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you today, Dante, is about like how I think that the the fact that people need to not take their literacy for granted and know that it was like the greatest gift that you could give a child in history in a world where like 5% of the population was literate. If you were literate, like you were the town scholar. Like you had to be the scribe, you had to be the
yeah.
guy that wrote down the history, you had to do all these things because it was such an honor and a privilege to have somebody to do that. And also like of course these guys were the most intelligent people in their towns, not because they were just like blessed genetically, but because they had the gift of being able to read the greatest minds before them, you know? And like I said today, the aesthetic is important. Like I get inspired a lot of times to research something or read a book because of a movie that I watch or because of a TV show that I see or a painting or something. And how much more alive does it become? Like you said, like you can see The Last Supper and by Da Vinci, and you can just stare at that painting for hours and like
For
study all
hours
of it
on
and
end.
understand all the symbology and the meaning behind it. But then, if you are a literate person, you can literally take all of the
My
inspiration that you've
gosh.
just seen in that painting, and you can go read the story in the Bible, and just understand
Yes.
it to a T. Like it's such a blessing, and we take it for granted all the time.
100%. It's like a whole like I think that's honestly another sphere as to why, because there was a lot of times where when I first started, like I was just making videos to make videos. I really had no real aim. I just wanted to talk about what I was
Just
reading,
looking for friends, yeah.
pretty much. But then like seeing how reading had like changed how I saw the world. I was now like interacting with art differently, listening to music differently, watching movies differently, and then I kind of go through different lanes where like I'm now recognizing what I'm being marketed to by not to
Yes.
get blank on here,
Yeah.
but
That's okay.
like big corporations are trying to market to me, but it's because I read something else where like I now see the world differently because I am interacting with media this way. And
Yeah.
that's why I've kind of been making I just started doing it now, making more like graphics and trying to edit more to, get a bigger
I've been
fan base.
noticing. I
But
like those videos.
yeah, preach, man. But when I first started for the first like year I was making videos, I intentionally kept everything I was doing really like I just want you guys to hear like the passion coming through because I want you guys to read. I don't want you to follow me because I have all this stuff going on. Like, please
Yep.
just read the book I'm talking about. Which is why when I first started, I would have like on Instagram you can only have 3-minute videos, but on TikTok you get infinite. I had like 12, 15-minute videos about books on one book.
I know. Yeah.
Like I would just
Yeah.
talk,
I
and I
would
was like,
I would
"Yo,
straight
please,
up,
just
and
read."
because you would just talk, sometimes I would open the video and I'd be like on a walk or something. I'd just put the phone in my pocket and I'd just listen to it. Because it's just
Bro,
like you're just sitting there talking about the books, but it's really good stuff. And I think that that's why people mess with your content so much. Especially like you came out with your first YouTube video was like 40 minutes basically
40
of
minutes,
you,
yeah.
yeah, doing the same thing that you do on TikTok, but just longer. And it did really well. Like people loved it because like semi-coherent ramblings. Like that's just like what we,
Coherent ramblings, man.
And also too, I actually kind of wanted to ask you about this. Like I wonder, and I'm not trying to get you to like call out your audience or anything, but like how much of your audience do you think are like not actually reading any of these books? But like want to really badly, and so they're kind of like reading vicariously through you. Does that ever like kind of
Yeah.
you ever think that?
No, that I definitely do think kind of when I made the switch from fiction to more like philosophical text, I could
Uh-huh.
very clearly tell that like my audience isn't fully
There was a little bit of
invested
a
in
drop
what I'm
off.
actually reading. A little bit of a drop
Yeah.
off. But everyone that was there, because the drop off was pretty like it wasn't even too bad. It was more so like the comments were different. They weren't
Yeah.
responding to like, yo, I've read this, I love the book, or something. It wasn't anything in that lane. It was more so like, wow, this is fascinating kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
and like
I
actually
started
engaging
making
with
it
it. Yeah.
right. And I was making videos on that. And it's very clear they're almost like living like I don't have to read Discourse on Method. He did it for me. So when you
Yeah.
just watch this 12-minute video where he's propped up the phone in a space with barely anything behind him with books everywhere and he just
Yeah.
talks. So I just
Yeah.
pop up the phone and talk about it as if like I'm not some teacher, but I just read it and I have a above average memory. I'll just
Well, it's
tell you about it.
insanely relatable, and I think that that's another reason that people like it is because they know that. I mean, like you can tell immediately from watching your videos, you're not there to like push an ideology or an agenda or something. You are not like selling the books. You are not trying to make people like learn. Like you're not like I just finished reading Dante's Inferno, and these are 12 things that you need to know about. You know what I mean? And it's like
Yeah.
you could make those videos theoretically, but I think, like you said, what most people are looking for is they're just looking for like a who else has read this book, and like they might just look up Dante's Inferno, and if they come across your video, like that's going to be the best video that they could watch about it because they're getting a genuine reaction from somebody who's likable, relatable, well spoken, and just like genuinely like invested in what you're talking about. You know, like you could tell there's
Right.
passion behind it, and that's really all
Yeah.
people care about.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've kind of tried to latch onto, at least for the last few months, has been like this aspect of reverence that we spent an hour today talking about previous civilizations just having reverence for looking at things and being
Yeah.
awestruck by paintings and statues and literature. And I just want to bring back this aspect of like I just read this book and I'm geeking out about it unapologetically online because I want you
Yeah.
guys to have the same just passion and reverence for it that I have. Whenever I think of the Divine Comedy in my head, it's like I get antsy. I want to read it again. It's like this is like
It's
amazing.
inspiring, yeah.
It's the best thing ever. And but I think the reason why I like it so much is because I've seen Doray's illustrations for it, and then I've heard the audiobook where that British actor saying it with like insane passion, like because guys in the Latin it rhymes, and I think the Kirkpatrick
Right.
translation tries to keep the rhyme. So like
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this rhyming, almost beautifully said depiction of the comedy. I've seen all the illustrations for it. I'm reading it in my head, and I have a pretty good memory. I'm pretty good with my mind. I have like it's a perfect way to look at it. And whenever someone adapts the movie, it's gonna be insane. But like I'll have all
True.
these. Yeah, eventually it'll happen. But I have all
Yeah.
these facets of media that's kind of just conglomerating into one thing where it's like, I love the story of the Divine Comedy. And I'm just trying to bring
Yeah.
that to the audience because I feel like that's what people are missing. That's a big thing with Shakespeare as well. I started reading all of Shakespeare's stuff. And
I saw that.
in high school, it was dry, really boring, dull. I didn't get to see anything for it. But now I'm reading it and I'm watching the British plays, or I'm watching the play with it. I'm hearing the audiobook with it. I'm looking up depictions. There's paintings for it. It's if you really invest yourself into the story in the way I'm trying to explain now, there's no way you're not just in awe by it. There's no way.
Yeah.
I like that idea of reverence you just said. That's something I think I do, but I hadn't thought about it in that way before. It's like when I read a story of like a Viking warrior who traveled and did these things, and then I see like a depiction of him, I'm like, I need to share this with people because I think it's awesome, and it's like
Yes,
I want
it's
you
so
guys to
cool.
know because it's just something there's a reverence there, and I just hadn't thought about it in terms of that word reverence, but I really like that because it's not just like an enthusiasm; it's almost this like divine appreciation for it. I love that term. I'm gonna think on that for a good long while. That's
A lot of it too, I think, is especially when it comes to like to get like super analytical. Just for anybody who's curious, Instagram recently updated their algorithm for content creators, and like if you want your video to do well, it needs to be very highly shareable. They want videos where like you're going to like there's like a point system, and a like is worth so many points, a comment is worth so many points. But a share, like if you can get somebody to DM your video to somebody else, that's worth like 10 points on their system or whatever. And I realize a lot of times that we're like creating content, same reason that you started creating content is because you wanted to share with other people. Like social media is actually social at the end of the day. It really is actually about like creating community and like being in touch with your friends and stuff like that. And like you said, Dane, when you find a story about a Viking hero that is inspiring to you, and then you see the photo and you're revering this thing in your head, you feel this like compulsive urge to share it with other people because you're like not a selfish person and you want to also inspire others, right? Like even if it's a work that's not your own, you see the inspiration and you're like people need to know about this, and like you share
it's
it.
kind of like Dante said at the beginning. Social media is great because you can do that in a way. It's like like you said in the beginning, if I walked into a bar with like a picture printed out in the story, and I'm like, "Hey, everybody,
Look at this shit."
and it'd be, that's not necessarily the right target audience. But social
Yeah.
media is great because it will get things to your target audience and to the people who will benefit and appreciate it, which is just amazing for people like us to be able to share that enthusiasm and reverence with people who will also want to share it, and it just goes on and on. And like you said, sometimes I'll scroll past it like an artwork and I'll throw it on my story because I might not necessarily make a full video about it or something, but
Right.
like I want people to see this cool artwork just because it's cool and I saw it and I liked it. Everyone else look at it.
Yeah, and it almost
Yeah.
conveys a message. It like says something about yourself too, and like we're always trying to, we're trying to do that too. We're trying to identify ourselves, orient ourselves in the world, and sometimes the easiest way to do that is to just post a painting and just be like, "That's what I believe in."
Total, kind of a sidebar, because this might not be yours, but is that an energy sword next to you, next to your head?
Yeah, is that from Halo?
Yes, yes.
Yes, it
I
is.
was a big Halo fan growing up, so I was like, it's like, there's
Yeah,
the energies.
yeah. It's
I've
Talk
never
about a
played.
story that was inspired by the Bible. The original
it-
Halo is very
Oh yes,
biblical.
the Halo is very biblical, and you know what else too? There's this band. I don't know if you guys are into like hardcore, but My Children, My Bride. They have a song called Headshot, and it's about Halo, and they're a Christian band, and they didn't have to sacrifice their Christianity for the song about Halo. But yeah, this is an
Yeah.
energy sword. It's my. I'm not married to my girl yet, but it'll be my soon-to-be sister-in-law's.
Yeah, I've
Nice. I
never
think just
played
when you
Halo.
said, um,
Never
gosh, I
played it. I
haven't
wanted to
in
though.
years. I'm not much of a gamer anymore, but it's one of those childhood things.
Yeah,
Saw it on Jonas's wall
No.
right when he said, "I have a picture on the wall. This is what I believe in." It's like Jonas believes in the
I
energy
believe in
sword.
Halo, and whatever this guy is, I'm not.
I
There's
I
a
think the
bunch
only
of there's a
game I
bunch of cool
played
stuff
was
in here.
God of War for obvious
oh,
Oh,
reasons.
nice.
It's the only
obviously with the
one.
mythology connection there,
Yeah.
Yeah,
um, huge. I
that's
think
really
they're
the only
still
reason
making
why.
them.
Yeah, they're just out to Lawfay. I'm really excited for that. I haven't played the game in so long, but whenever they drop, I'm there, man. I'm always
I haven't
there.
played that. I gotta get that one. I gotta get that. I really like. I love Assassin's Creed games, and I know that that one's like kind of similar-ish in like playing style. And I tried to get into
Mhm.
Skyrim, but Skyrim I think is just like too not too old for me. But I'm just like not good enough at video games. Like there needs to be a setting on the game where I can set it to like kindergarten mode and just like run through it,
Yeah,
or else
As
I
far
can't
as
play.
I
I'm fucking
understand
stuck.
Skyrim, it's like you are going to invest a lot of hours if
Yeah.
you want to
And I'm
experience this,
not
and
gonna
it's like
invest a lot of hours. I just
it
want to run
looks
around and look at
awesome.
cool
It looks
stuff.
everything I hear about it looks great, but it's just
Yeah,
like I'm not that good of a gamer either, and I do not have the time or willpower
yeah.
to invest
yeah.
in that
You know, that
extensive.
actually reminds me. As far as getting into history goes, video games are a really good in for a lot of people. We've talked about this with other people, asking them how they got into history, and a lot of people have said like Total War, which you streamed last
Yeah,
night.
yeah, just
Mm.
just stream that, and it was the Sea People stream, and I'd never played
Hmm.
that title, and kind of what we were saying with art and stuff. It gave a lot of like visual aesthetic to something. I mean, the Sea Peoples are such an
So aesthetic.
ancient people, and it's like seeing them in motion, seeing descriptions of their gods and stuff. It just kind of helped the history click a little bit more, even though I had already come in with an understanding of their history.
Yeah, exactly.
And people like to with movies and games get really like pure, where it's like, oh, well, that's not realistic, it's not accurate, and it's like, yes, maybe from a strict perspective, but in terms of getting people engaged in history,
It's
I
perfect.
think those experiences are actually very vital.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I definitely think I could kind of get into that. I haven't played video games in. I think the last game I played was like 2K21. So it's
Bro's
been
too
like
busy
5
reading.
years. No, literally, I really don't do anything else. I need to have like, I'm either like at museums or just reading. Man, that's really kind
Yeah,
of all I do.
It's
I mean,
honestly much better than most people can say these days.
dude, and that's genuinely like my favorite shit to do. Like we got here to Florida, and like the first thing that we had to go, I was like, we got to go to St. Augustine. I gotta see the Castillo so I can make a video in front of it, and then we got to go hit the museum. Like that's stop number one:
Yes.
beach, and then museum, and then historical site. Like have to hit
Yeah.
it, you know, because it just calls to you. It's got an energy, but yeah, do you guys, we're at an hour and 40 right now. How do you guys feel about taking a quick break and then we jump into questions?
Cool.
And we're back. Dante, you had a couple of questions that you said you wanted to ask before we got into the questions for you, so go ahead.
Yes, man. So the first one I had was at St. John's. Whenever I do go, it's a triple degree in like philosophy, literature, and science.
Oh, cool.
And but mostly it's like philosophy. That's kind of the whole trademark for the school. You went to school for it, so advice on like how to, I guess like approach class and anything like that really.
Yeah, I've answered that question a couple times, so I've hopefully gotten pretty good at it. Number one piece of advice I would give is forget the way that you learned to write essays in high school. The way that you write philosophy essays are going to be completely different. So the first thing, I mean, the first piece of advice I would give to anybody is just to like be open-minded and be open to new ideas, which I already know that you are, so you're not going to struggle there. But the second thing, yeah, definitely when it comes to philosophy, especially like beyond just being really like engaging with the material really well, one thing that my professors hammered into me is the fact that like a philosophy is as beautiful as some philosophers may write and as well spoken as they are, like that's not what makes their work great. What makes their work great is their ideas. So when you're writing a philosophy essay, don't worry about like all the flowery language and hitting your word limit and these sorts of things. Like for the most part, they're going to have word like limits to the maximum. Like you have to stay below this amount because it's really hard to do philosophy in less than 3,000 words, in less than 5,000 words. You know what I mean? So a lot of philosophy professors will tell you they want you to get to the point as soon as possible, explain your ideas clearly, and also you have to provide like counter arguments for your arguments in your own work. And they really, like I said, they want you to get to the point. So like a lot of times, if there is something that you feel like you can cut out, or if you feel like you're sort of going on a tangent or something, is probably just not the place for it. You know what I mean? That was the one thing that I learned is like just be prepared to completely relearn how to write essays. Third thing that I would say, I've literally made videos about this, about like, what to look forward to
Bro,
in
I
philosophy
did not
class.
know
I'm
that.
kind of drawing a blank
I'm
right
about to go
now.
watch one too. I'll go watch one before I get on
Yeah,
campus.
tips for someone taking their first college philosophy class. I have 5 of them.
Oh, this is
I'm going
this is
to
great.
start with the most general, sort of unimportant advice, and then
Yo, can you send me that video, Joe?
Yes, I'm gonna send it to you.
Someone taking their first college philosophy class.
Let me see. Yeah, just to have on hand, but let me see what see what points I made in this video. The reading is the work, the writing is the fun. I agree with that. I think that when I first took my first philosophy
I
class,
agree with that. You
Yeah.
made the video.
bro, this guy knows ball. No, so like I mean, I already knew that the reading was the fun part because I got into reading philosophy before I made it my major. And so I knew that like I was going to enjoy the reading, but I didn't realize how much reading it was going to be. And so I would say you're an avid reader, so you're probably not going to struggle with this. I think most people were struggling with the actual like workload of the reading, and also like when you're reading philosophy, if you it's not like writing a historical essay or a book report or something where you got to dive through and like get all the little details. It's almost kind of like when you're doing a philosophy paper, it's like you need an idea and the idea is just going to like strike you at some point, but it takes a lot of work in the reading to get there. And then once you get there, you have the idea, you have the like the connections, the paths are all made. Then you can write the paper. I would usually write my papers in like 3 hours, and then it would just be like days of editing. But like 3 hours, I'm just like I'm
Yeah.
possessed by the muse, and I just like write it all out. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's why I
Yeah.
said that the reading is the work, the writing is the fun part. The second thing is to be selective with readings because they will throw you the kitchen sink and be like, read fucking, Thomas Aquinas's Summa Theology, and you're like, well, I can't do that, So it's like you gotta be selective, and I would say, especially when it comes to, they're gonna give you a lot of things, and if there's any way that you can get like secondary sources, like commentaries on books that can sort of help you like finish them faster or grasp the main ideas. I would say I never really like sunk my teeth super deep into a text until I knew that it was going to be very pertinent for whatever we were going to be writing on. Because like I've taken like these Plato classes where they would give you 8 different Plato books to read, but then when it came to the paper, there was only like 3 books that we were going to talk about, and really one of them was the main point. So I knew which one I wanted to focus on, sort of thing. So that'd be my second tip. And then my third tip, translate difficult texts into your own words. Whenever you're reading a philosopher who's insanely difficult to read, I would just like have my laptop open and I would read something. I would try and figure out what they're saying. I'd rewrite it in my own words, and then I would just read my words, and then I would see what they were saying. It would make a lot more sense.
Huh. Okay. Actually, never thought about that last one.
Number 4, this one is important. Take risks with your writing. Your professors don't want you to write a book report. They don't want you to, well, Plato thought this, and I think that he's correct. It's like, take what Plato said and turn it into your own thoughts. What does Plato's ideas, like, what do they make you think of, you know? And how can you turn that into your own unique ideas with your own unique conclusions? And you can be, like, radically incorrect. Like, and that's okay. Like, take risks. I think one of the best pieces of advice I got from a professor was to take more risks in your writing. Because a lot of people are just afraid of being wrong. And then number 5, like I said earlier, was be open-minded for your grade and for yourself. So yeah, those are my tips for philosophy class.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think just like kind of everything what you were saying, because I've been for the last few months I've been like the self-teaching. I've been really trying to like I'll make curriculums for myself. I'll write like I'll like connections I'm finding, and what you said about like the idea hits you to write something, it would just like randomly just spark.
Yeah.
On like page 240.
It's almost like the neurons are kind of like slowly trying to reach each other as you're reading, and then you just read like one word or one passage, and it boom touches, and it like lights the whole, and you're like, oh, I just got it, and now you have your idea for your paper.
Like I think that was the big aspect that I'm missing, because I haven't wrote anything about the ideas I have, and I will say that I have like, I mean, obviously just by proxy of reading so much, I have so many ideas I want to write about. But I've never done any writing like at all, and I think that's something I could be missing, because I actually haven't. I've been kind of debating on like saying it on video or anything, but this might be the time, man. Since I've been reading for the last like year, I kind of can see myself doing it for like a long period of time, like almost like a life. I have like lifetime questions I want to answer, and I'm thinking that I could almost kind of stay at academia for a while and like try and really tackle some of these ideas more so in epistemology. I think that's going to be a lane that I want to stay in the most, like the theory of knowledge, definition, certainty, and stuff like that.
Professor Dante.
And I think like the aspect of writing is like the biggest thing I need to, and rhetoric as well, speaking, public speaking, and stuff like that. There's definitely spheres I need to get more into, but I definitely think there's a lane for me there. I have like a lot of ideas I want to kind of touch on. So
yeah,
I'm definitely taking your advice, man. You're a legend, dude.
Yeah, dude, my pleasure. Yeah, reading is 100%. Like I said, it's the hard work, and the writing is the fun part. But there is an art to it. I think that the art of philosophy writing is to just, like I said, if you haven't written anything in a long time, but like you remember when you were writing like book reports in school, and they would want you to like, you know, they would want you to hit a certain word count because they want you to like think deeply about it. Philosophy is already inherently like deep thinking. So now they just want you to like cut through the bullshit, get to the point. Especially if you're a philosophical person, like you are able to write a 10,000 word paper without saying a thing. I do it all the time in my videos, you know, but like to actually say something in 5,000 words is incredibly difficult. So that's, I would say, just be willing to listen to your professors, like genuinely ask them for advice. That was something that I would do, is like I would take my papers to my TAs and I would just be like, tear me apart, like tell me why this is, you know, terrible and what I can do about it. And some of the best advice I ever got. A lot of it was just get to the point.
Yeah.
Get to the point.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
All right. I think that was that. Then the other question I had was more so just with content, because I think you guys both make like just phenomenal content, man.
Thanks, bro.
But I do want to add on, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I want to add on a sphere of visual arts, and I want to talk about like certain paintings and painters and more visual artists. Should I like kind of try and weave it into my content now, or like make another account. I
Yeah.
don't really know which way to go with that.
The perpetual desire of all content creators to just make new accounts for every niche interest that we have.
Yeah.
I've felt that too, because I just realized, like, I posted philosophy first on my YouTube channel, and then when I posted my first history video, it fucking blew up, and then I was like, oh, I'm the history guy now. And then people call me the
Yeah.
history guy. And so now I'm like, damn, can I even go back to making philosophy, or should I start a new channel, whatever? I think it's cool if you have it all on one page. I always, not to glaze, I always really liked Dane for this reason, because you could go to his page and you could find everything. You could find mythology, philosophy, literature, film, history. It's all on there. And it's all kind of like woven in its own way. You know, it's not like completely separate topics, really. So I would say keep the same account and weave it in, because like we were just talking about, like, you know, if you're looking at art history or something, there's always a piece of literature that you could tie to that.
Every time. Yeah.
I mean, every great painting during the Renaissance or the Baroque period is either about the Bible or Greek mythology. Like,
All of them, everyone.
so you can just tie whatever you're reading to Homer or Ovid or the Bible, or, you know, something. So I think that would be a really cool avenue for you.
Definitely, man.
What do you think, Dane?
Yeah, I mean, going off what Jonas said, I've always once I kind of, because I started just posting just because I wanted to post about my interests. But once I realized, I was like, okay, now I'm actually like starting to build a platform, whatever. I was very careful to not pigeonhole myself too much, and I was like, if I'm going to post about something, like I wasn't going to limit myself, even if it wasn't going to appeal to all my audience. And I think, like Jonas said, I think my skill is to kind of weave things together that otherwise people might not connect. Because I'm not, like, history, I'm not the most knowledgeable historian that makes history content. I'm not the most, when I talk about the gym, I'm not the best, I'm not the biggest lifter, you know, all these things. But the way I can weave them together, I think that adds a lot for people who...
You're a dot connector.
Yes. And I think people actually really appreciate when you connect dots for them and you take their interests and the things they like about your content, and then bring it into a new area. It might be a little jarring if you went from, like, talking about books to, I don't know, talking about soda flavors or something. Something
So
like
weird.
completely
I was
arbitrary with
I was
no
gonna say
connection.
soup. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, especially if you're going to talk about, like Jonas said, art, there's so much you can connect. So I think it's worth keeping on your main channel, or main page. But I some creators do say you should make multiple things for different niches, but that's just never been my approach. But I don't know, there might be merit to that as well.
I feel like that's warranted if it's, like, very different. If you're a person who has, like, their political account and then you have your fitness account, like, yeah, split those things up. I don't want to see the same, you know what I mean? But
that makes sense. Or
art history and literature,
you're like a
like,
sport team account, and it's
Yeah.
like all about, you know, the Miami Dolphins or something, and then you start talking about philosophy, all of a sudden they might be like,
exactly.
yeah.
So,
But
yeah.
I think what you already talk about is connectable enough to what you might branch into.
And I'm excited to see it, I'll say that.
Yeah, man, I can't wait, dude. I've been really thinking on it for like a month now. Like, yo, I read just as much as art history as I do philosophy. Like, just talk about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, but
Yeah,
I'm inspired.
Definitely
man.
do
I'm
it.
inspired.
Definitely do it. I'm also excited to see what you do there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Man. All right.
Beautiful. So you ready to jump into some questions for you?
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
let's do it. Let's see here. Questions are typically for all of us, but sometimes they're more geared towards the guest. But first question, what book or writing do you get most frustrated about people misinterpreting?
The Prince.
The
For sure. Machiavelli.
Ooh, that is
It's
a
not
great
even-
answer off the top.
No, it's not gonna lie. I just made the reason why it's so on the top is because I made a video about it, I think 2 days ago, where I was like, yo, you guys, I feel like you guys just aren't And see, now I feel like I'm being that guy and the pretentious elite. I don't know. I feel like if you read the introduction to any edition to The Prince, you'll know what lens to read it through.
Yep.
And they just don't do that.
Yeah.
Like they kind of just make it seem it's like some edgy teen that's trying to rebel against the world to avenge his
Well, because
fallen
what people
self.
know about the Prince, they actually learned from the 50 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. You know,
Yeah.
So they never actually read the Prince.
Like you actually, that's what I'm saying. See, okay, that might be it. That
Yeah.
might be it. They have the wrong lens for it. But I think like
They're LARPing the
Machiavelli to
LARP.
me is probably one of my favorite. It's not my favorite people like ever. Like when I was younger, Tupac was like one of my favorite, if not my favorite rapper.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a moniker of Machiavelli, and I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And I kind of got into Machiavelli, and I see that he like got exiled, tortured, faked his death. I'm like, yo, he's the coolest person ever.
He's like
And then
why am I forgetting the Monte Cristo? He's like the Count of Monte Cristo.
I've not read that yet. I need to read kind of 100%.
I haven't read
But
it either,
yeah.
to be honest with you. I just know
Like-
of the story, and that sounds like the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, like Machiavelli's like the lens I want people to read it through is that like he loved the Florentine Republic so much that like there need to be one person to rise and unify the Italian peninsula, and he's like he needs to have these traits. Now he's not prescribing this to the casual government, but he's saying like we need it for the time,
Right.
which is why he references like Caesar Borgia and other like I think another one of the Leopolds, I forgot his name. There's like 90 of them, but like he references a ton of leaders because they did bad things that he addresses in the text. He says this was a bad thing. You
Right.
should not have done this, but it unified the states.
Right.
So like that's the entire engine for the Prince, and he was saying like, which is why he's a political genius of like statecraft. He was like one of a kind, because that's one of the first texts where it shows like, okay, like morals can get a little murky when you're governing people. So whenever something goes wrong, you may need to do something that you deem to be immoral to unify back to where it can be in a state you can actually govern.
Plato speaks
That's
of
the
this.
lens you're supposed to read it through.
Yep.
Like that is to me, it's not hard to comprehend that. But I'm tired of scrolling and seeing like some 17-year-old like, yo, the Prince changed how I manipulated people in my life. I'm like, you're not reading it. I'm like, you're not reading it, bro.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great answer. That's a wonderful answer. Did you have anything that came to mind for you, Dane? Books that get misinterpreted? Just out of curiosity.
Hold. Can you come back to me if
Come
you
back
have
to you?
one?
The Bible? No, I'm just kidding. That's too much of a cop-out answer.
That's a big one, though. That's a big one.
Yeah, books that get misinterpreted.
The Gospel of John, man.
Dude,
It's a
yeah,
big one.
to be honest, actually, since it's come up already, I'll say The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. I think that a lot of people thought that Dan Brown was trying to, I don't want to like spoil too much of the book, but I think that a lot of people think that Dan Brown is like trying to subvert Christianity, or that he's anti-Christian or anti-religion, and he's not. He's just looking at the biblical stories and Christianity as a whole from like such a meta sort of conspiratorial lens that it comes off as like to the average Christian person like seemingly very heretical, which I think is the reason that it was so controversial of a book. But it's kind of like one of those things where you read it and you're like just like, first of all, it's a story, so relax everybody. Second of all, just like actually listen to what he's saying. Like, this historical group claimed this, and this historical group has ties with these people, and they're part of this institution, and they claim this. So it's like you put the dots together. If you're like Dane and you're a professional dot connector, like at some point you're going to come to the conclusion that you're like, maybe there's something to this. But I won't spoil the book, so I'll just say that I think Dan Brown's works are a little bit inflated in the wrong direction sometimes.
Honestly, I cannot think of a good answer.
That's totally okay.
Just straight up, the Prince was a very good pick.
Yeah.
So I can't steal that.
This is proof that the podcast is raw. We don't come up with these answers.
Yeah.
Nah,
I'm
the Prince
sure.
was
I'm
always
sure
good.
if I encountered something, it would snap. I guess more generally, I would just say that people don't really read at all. So it's like a lot of online debates and things about history, in books and things. It's like two people who have like maybe the spark notes who are arguing, and it's like neither of you are even. It starts to become such a simulacrum of like a discussion about the topic. It's like why are either of you even discussing this? And I guess there's not a historical work that I think people like misinterpret, but their ideas of history and historical civilizations and things are so influenced through the lens of pop history and movies and narratives that are told, where it's like we're not even talking about a real people. We're not talking about the medieval. I guess the medieval age, I would say, is the most misunderstood. Where it's like people will talk about the Middle Ages, and I'm like, this.
I mean, our
this
boy
thing
John's
you're
got a whole account
describing-
dedicated to it.
Exactly. That's why he was such a fascinating guest. It's like you're not even talking about something that existed. This is just like made up nonsense, and you're arguing over it. And it's like that would be my unsatisfactory answer. So no book I can think of off the top of my head, but medieval history is my cop-out secondary answer.
Okay, word. We have another question here. What is your favorite video that flopped? What do people not understand about it?
That is a great question.
That's a great question. That's shout out to my boy Drew. He's in my Patreon and Discord. Shout out Drew, love him.
Wait, I've never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I think I have one. Oh, go ahead. Let me think about it.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, because I know that he asked this question just for me, because I was bitching in my Discord the other day about my video that flopped. So he's kind of calling me out a little bit. But I made that video about vitalism, transhumanism, and the morality of aesthetics. And bro, this is how quickly you can become rusty at content creation. I was on the road for a week and I like moving, and in 2 weeks I forgot how to fucking make content. And then I pull up and I get the camera out and I set it up and I write this script that I think is good, and I forget that I'm making content and I'm not writing a philosophy essay. And I did that. I wrote a philosophy essay and then posted it with pictures you could look at the Instagram analytics. The scroll rate on the video was like 70% or something. Like people just saw it and they were like, boom, see you later. And normally it's like 30% or whatever. And I went back and looked at the video. It had no hook. There was I just jumped right in, started saying big words right off the bat, and nobody stuck around to listen. The people that did really liked it. But that was a little bit of a lesson on my end, remembering that you create content for yourself, but you still got to kind of make it a little interesting, sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I think there's two videos that come to mind. One of them came to mind when you just mentioned yours. I made a video when I first started about Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye, and I was comparing it to Dorian Gray, or mostly Dorian himself, or the character of Dorian.
What was the first one called?
The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison.
Huh.
And then specifically the main character is Piccola. And I was comparing the two characters where they both were like almost polar opposites, where Dorian was completely vain and he loved everything about himself.
Yeah.
Piccola hated everything about herself due to her situation. And I was like, it shows how identity is like fragmented. It was a pretty good video. I thought it was like 9 minutes. It was like, yo, this is wow, it's some great work. I actually thought about it was my first video where I really put my ideas out there that wasn't just about the book.
Right, yeah.
And I think it got maybe 2,000 views. I was like,
yeah.
So did y'all just not see the video? I don't think there was a hook though. I think I just started talking where I was just like, so guys, here's I was like, oh yeah, let's just delete that. Let's just delete that video.
Yeah.
But then the other one I had was a Greek mythology video that I kind of talked about the importance of it. It didn't really do that well, and I was like, I wish you guys would have watched that one.
Yeah, it's always the ones that you work the absolute hardest on, It's the ones that you actually take a risk. But hey, that's the nature of the beast, bro. You got to just put yourself out there, try new things. And then when it doesn't work, instead of getting upset about it, you can cry about it for 5 minutes, and then after that, just just be like, all right,
to the next one.
What did I do wrong? Yeah, let's fix this. Let's not let this happen again. But yeah, I feel that. I feel that. What about you, Dane? I see you looking at your phone trying to
Yeah,
see which one's got the lowest
I was
views.
scrolling through to like look at the view counts.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's gotta be. It's one of my film reviews for sure, or not. Film reviews the wrong term, but videos about film. And as a topic in general, they just don't do as well. Um,
Because I
View
think a lot of
wise.
people, if they haven't seen the movie, they won't watch it.
Yeah, and especially because I'm not usually going after like a movie that just came out or something
Yeah.
topical. It's like some old movie that was in my dad's Amazon library I watched, right? And the people, it gets good engagement from the people who watch it, but they just never get that high.
Right.
Specifically, I guess one I'll call out. My last film one I did was on Lost Highway, which is one of my favorite movies, top two, and it got under 10,000 views, which is not a
Yeah.
great performing video for something that I love so much and that has been so influential on
Yeah.
a lot of my work. But I'm not, I guess I wouldn't say I was disappointed by it either, because I kind of know if I'm going to make one of those videos, it's just not going to do as well, and I just do it for the love of the game and
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I want to.
Yeah.
What I actually experience almost in reverse is like sometimes there's a video, especially on like my extra account, where it's like
That you think is just stupid as hell.
I almost don't want it to blow up. It's like more a question for for like my specific niche audience, and then all of a sudden it gets like 500,000 views, and it's like totally broken containment. And I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
I actually don't. This
I
is
did not want this
painting.
attention here.
Yeah, this is painting like a very specific picture of what I do, and it's like
Yeah.
no, it's like it wasn't meant to. This wasn't meant to be shown to the masses, and it's like. I'd almost take that back, you know. It's like not that I like disagree with what I'm saying or anything. It's just not meant for. It's not like my proud work, you know. It's not like what I'd want to show people.
Yeah.
But the tides of the algorithm are strange. What hits and what doesn't, you just can't predict or force. So you kind of just have to learn with it, roll with the punches. I will say though. Hooks, absolutely. If I have a video now where I really want it to do well, I'm going to try to tailor in a good hook.
Yeah. You got to.
which-
You got to.
Kind of sucks, but it's just the game, you know.
Hook, line, and sinker, baby. That's why they call it that. What made the Greek hero Achilles so unique and powerful that his echo survived ages?
I think that's a question for you, Jonas. I can.
All right. I think that what made Achilles so unique and powerful that his echo survived the ages is the fact that there is something. I mean, I kind of made this video where I talked about like Aeneas from Virgil's The Aeneid being the magnanimous Aristotelian magnanimous man, and Achilles being the Nietzschean Übermensch. I think there is something in Achilles that is just like he's the perfect archetypal hero for a few reasons. One, because his cause is ultimately a lost cause because he already knows that he's going to die in this battle, right? So he literally, like, he's given the option of staying home and living a normal life and then being forgotten forever, or you can go and have a glorious, achieve glory, but you will die and you will never see home again, you know? And I think that just as men, we kind of like hear that and we go, yeah, it would be hard not to choose the latter. But at the same time, like, maybe you don't know if you actually have the balls to. And so I think that Achilles is kind of that portrayal of like the indomitable spirit to go out and actually do those things. And also the fact that he stays true to his word. He like condemns Odysseus for being kind of like conniving and deceiving and these sorts of things. So like, you know, there's just a lot of things that are like really noble about him that transcend cultures. That like even in a culture today where we are not living in a heroic ancient Bronze Age Greek society, we can still see these qualities in this person and his perseverance, his nobility, his honor, integrity, these sorts of things, and still relate to him in some way, in a way that it's sort of something that we want to see in ourselves.
Solid answer.
Yeah, I can't really top that one, man. I think Achilles is also just like one of the more perfect archetypes, just like for man. You
Yeah.
know, like I feel like when you look back at history, Achilles is like the maybe Hercules as well,
Mm,
where you kind of we're very flawed hero archetypes to where they're more human than more Superman. Like Superman is like he has the like the sphere of like Clark Kent, and you know you can kind of relate to it. But when you think of Superman, you don't think of Clark Kent. I feel like
yeah.
whenever Achilles or Hercules is brought up, people try to be like them. They try to emulate them as archetypes. So
Like
that's what I
Alexander.
would say
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, but you had a man. Your answer was it can't be topped, man.
No, you're right though. Like there is a very human aspect. Like you look at Achilles and you see he like I said he's all those good things that I said, but he's also very prideful. Like he's prideful to the point where he put all of his men in jeopardy essentially because his pride was so hurt when Agamemnon took Briseis from him. Like that he was like I will like he's stubborn as a bull, like all these things that are not necessarily good qualities, but they're what made him the hero that he is. So it's like there's always a trade-off in humanity. You can't be Superman. Superman doesn't exist. But Achilles exists. And people are not gonna like that I said that, the literalist, but yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead. Then you can go real quick.
I was just gonna say, solid point, Jonas. Like he's got these. He's not a great soldier
In a
our
traditional
understanding
fashion.
of what
Yeah.
a soldier is. He's
He'd be kicked out of the military so fast.
Yes,
So fast.
he's very prideful. He's more of a embodiment of a warrior in a very archetypal sense, and we just don't see that a lot today.
Yep.
Heroes like Superman's very. He's doing it for the good of the common person. He's not doing it for himself. The soldiers, same thing. Our heroes are very serving in that sense. Our understanding
Right.
of heroism, and Achilles is such not that. He is about his pride and his honor.
Totally doing it for himself. His own personal glory. Yeah.
But there's things that are heroic about that and that we resonate with. So it's kind of like, and then it conflicts with our cultural understanding of heroism. So there's this like, I guess, conflict almost that makes him such an intriguing character. It actually relates to, I just watched that Masters of the Universe movie that came out. Because my dad loved the cartoon when he was a kid, and I just went to see the movie. And that's kind of like, I'm going to do a longer video on it, but that's kind of like the core struggle of the movie is like this idea of heroism and self-centeredness versus service, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the other thing they touch on with kind of both of you were saying that these characters are really flawed. I think it's Republic, where Socrates he bans the poets, but he bans it kind of for that reason, where he was saying like, well, if we want to make the ideal society and have our children be utopian or perfect children, they can't be, because it kind of hinges on the fact that they learned and adapted what these poets were saying from
Yeah.
these stories. Like I think Jonas made a video about it to where like these stories became true because they said them, like that they lived by them. And Socrates was like, well, Odysseus cries in the face of battle sometimes. Should we teach our kids that? And they say no, because it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So it kind of just goes to what we were saying, where these characters, like obviously outside of a philosophical text, everyone tries to be Achilles in their mind, but it's everything about Achilles. It's not just that like he did all these great things.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're gonna, sort of, because I always like to think about the fact that, like we said, the old meme that Napoleon LARPed as Julius Caesar LARPed as Alexander, and Alexander LARPed as Achilles. And so I think about like, Alexander as a person, what Achillean traits, if that's a word, did he adopt? Like, was he self-serving? Was he prideful? Did he have to become those sort of more negative things in order to embody the positive, like, traits of Achilles as well? You know what I mean? And I do sometimes wonder, like, have you guys ever seen that painting of Alexander with his men in the middle of the desert,
pouring out
and he's
the water.
pouring the water out of the helmet
Oh,
because
yeah.
he's like, no,
Yeah.
like we're all gonna be starved, of water. Like, I'm with you guys, because they were like, let's go home, and he's like, no, let's keep going, but I'm with you. And he's like, bro, we don't want you to be with us. We want to fucking go home, and like, it's one of those things where he's literally putting his men's lives on the line, just like Achilles did, but for the sake of like their ultimate victory, because the Greeks do win. And the Seleucids establish a dynasty and an Seleucid empire. They establish an empire in the Middle East. So, like, it worked. It fucking worked. But it took a lot of sacrifice and a lot of really selfish decisions on Alexander's end to make that happen. And same with Achilles. So, Alexander actually LARPed very well.
And that's just a good point also, as like an echo, because Alexander's such a big figure in our minds and his influence and everything. And yeah, obviously, as he said, he was carrying Achilles in his mind and heart. So,
yep. There you go. Next question, kind of an easy one. What's your favorite world mythology?
I can't get away from the Greeks, man.
I was going to say, we spent a lot of time on the Greeks today.
Yeah, like I tried to show some love. I mean, I've read the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Nice.
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Norse mythology is fascinating. I think I'll say that the answer is Greek mythology for me. I gotta say that, but I do love a lot of Norse mythos. Like, I think Tyr is one of the most like complex characters. I think you made a video on Fenrir. I think I commented on that video actually. I think Fenrir is so insane.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Who else? Odin's cool. Oh, Odin's ravens also have like a character about them as well.
Yeah, their names mean their names. I just read this the other day, but like, this is another cool thing about mythology, is that like Odin has two ravens that sit on his shoulders, and they fly around the world every day, and they collect all the information. They bring it back to him.
Yeah.
And I forget what their names are, like Urim and something else, but their names essentially mean like word and thought or something like that. Like that's what they literally translate to their names. And he has two wolves. Their names are Yari and Freki, and they literally mean like how would they mean like destruction and like hunger or something like that. Like you know what I mean? They represent sort of things, and like their names are representative of that. It's just like everything is so like symbolically coded.
Yeah, everything. I think his spear too. Gungnir is a spear. It kind of represents like it never misses, but it has like a mind of its own, to where even if he does miss, it'll like alter its own course.
Yes,
there's a lot of stories to where like he'll like kind of it'll. I think what's the dude's name that writes all the Norse mythology?
Oh, it's Snorri Sturluson.
Yeah. Whenever he depicts Odin, it's almost like Odin's like just dropping his spear, not even trying to throw it. He'll just like barely even like use it, and then just like I think Norse mythology is really cool because everything's personified. I think it's really cool with that.
I found it, by the way. It's his ravens are Hugin and Munin, and they mean thought and memory. And then his wolves are named Yari and Freki, and they mean the greedy and the ravenous. It's like the two kind of like archetypal, like this is wisdom, this is like carnal sort of pleasures, earthly, in the sky, on the ground. And even that in itself is like a symbol, the ravens versus the wolves. But I will say, I've been reading a lot of C.S. Lewis recently, and he said that he loved Norse mythology, Germanic mythology the best, but he thought that the Greeks were second best. And I still need to read more and figure out why he thinks that exactly. Obviously, that's sort of like the culture he comes from, because he's British. But I've always just found it kind of a little bit... I think I would like Norse mythology more if there was more of it, because I think that that's the one thing that the Greeks have over Germanic and Norse mythology.
Just volume, yeah, so
Volume.
much.
There is so much. There's Homer and there's all the like there's all of the ancient and Ovid and all of the ancient Greek poets
Bro,
and playwrights.
the playwrights are, yes, the playwrights are so
Yes,
fascinating.
that give these characters and these gods like life in their stories, that there's just so much. It's like endless. Like you could never go through all of the Greek mythology and like possibly comprehend it all. But like Norse mythology, I was thinking about this today actually. If it weren't for the Christians who visited Iceland and like got Snorri to like be in this position where he was a literate sort of like patriarch of his society who wanted to document his people's religion. If it's not for Snorri, we don't have anything. And like that's kind of
Yeah.
crazy to think about. Like this, like all of this religion, this mythology, like hangs on one man. And so the obviously like you have the prose Edda and the poetic Edda, and then like beyond that, like that's basically what everything is based off of. We have some archaeological
Yeah.
things, but like other than that, that's where the entire mythology comes from. So there's really just not a lot to go off of.
Oh, gosh, I mean,
We're recording. All right,
you
perfect.
guys took Greek and Norse mythology.
My
Greek,
answer was
I would
also
say-
Greek, though. By the way, so we
I-
have
I
two
would
Greeks,
say-
so you could say Norse.
Yeah.
I will say Greek is my favorite, but to give a third shout out, and granted, I'm not very well versed, and also when I'm saying this, I'm saying Native American mythology broadly, and I know there's tons of different cultures and subsets and peoples and things, so it's not really fair to like group them all as one mythology. But just kind of growing, especially when it comes to like the legends department, you've got the Wendigo and skinwalkers and things. And also
Yep.
having lived in a lot of areas of the US and seen a lot of, the desert, the mountains, the forest, the beach, and you can kind of see how it shapes the character of their mythology. And you can almost like feel something with the land where it's like, when I was in the forest, or like in the mountains or something, versus like wandering when I went hiking in Iceland, you could almost like feel the difference on like a spiritual level, if that makes sense, where it's like,
100%.
yeah, it's no wonder they came up with different mythology and folklore. They're different places with different things in the air and stuff. So it's almost like it feels like it kind of grounds me to the land a little bit, if that makes sense.
Totally.
But I do say that with the forewarning, I'm not nearly as well educated as I should be. I've got a book actually down here that's all about that. I just haven't gotten to the book because, as you both know, with reading lists, it grows faster than you read. It's always fun to buy a book and put it on the list, and then
Yeah.
the list gets bigger. But eventually we will get there. So
Nice. That'd be
Greek
interesting
is my
to see.
favorite, but I did want to shout out something that hadn't come up.
It's hard to beat the Greeks, man. It's hard.
Hard, and it's hard.
And to your point, Jonas, because they wrote about it so much.
They wrote about it so
There's
much,
probably
dude.
some awesome mythologies that just we never know of because
Yeah.
nobody wrote it down and it just faded and got weaved into other things and we'll just never know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Fortunate.
All right. We've got one last question. It's a really good one. It's a little bit of a long one. So, hey guys, I'm very well read in history, philosophy, mythology, and religion, but I find I really struggle to coherently translate knowledge from my mind into spoken word when discussing with friends. You guys are all exceptional at this, and I was wondering if you have any techniques you could share to help me improve in presenting ideas or speechcraft in general. This actually is probably a pretty good question for you, Dante, because like I said, one of the reasons that I think your content does so well is because you're sharing your like genuine thoughts about things without coming across like when I watch your videos, I genuinely feel like I'm on like just a FaceTime call with my friend and I'm just letting you ramble for 9 minutes straight, you know? And I think that that's one way where if I could just answer for myself very quickly, I think it's kind of just about being in the right presence of the people who want to even hear those things. Because if the people don't want to hear what you're talking about, then it's not really like up to you. Like you could present it in the most beautiful, eloquent way possible. If they don't really care, then they're not going to care. So that would be my first thing, is just to make sure that who you're talking to actually cares about what you're talking about. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that I kind of try to act like a bridge, because I know a lot of the stuff that I read or talk about, it isn't the easiest thing to just kind of like grasp and be able to interact with. But
Yeah,
I know the reason why I love it so much is because I've done a lot of the legwork. So if I can kind of like
yeah,
present, I think a lot of people would try and like kind of sum up a really hard idea or a concept and forget like the reason why they love it so much is because they actively tried to get there. So whenever I try to
right, dude.
get those, I try to really elaborate and be passionate about the legwork. And I say like the smaller things that I'll geek out about or like walk around my room about is mostly because that's where I find the most joy in. I feel like when I watch people make reviews, it's like the book was really good and was really well written, and a bunch of variations of that. Instead of
Yeah.
like, I was in well written, like show them a painting of why he did this, and like stuff like that makes it cool. Stuff like that, the stuff surrounding it makes it cool. That's kind of what I want to talk about.
That's a great point. That's a great point. What do you think, Dane?
I think it kind of is just storytelling. It's the art of giving value to what you want to say to your audience, right? And telling a good story, because especially when you're talking like philosophy and history, we talked about this a little bit earlier, where it's like you can get into the nitty gritty and start talking about logic and this empire, and you're gonna lose the layperson right away because they don't. It's just boring to them if they don't have a good frame of reference, and if they're not.
They need an in.
Yes, they need an in, and I think that's where a good storyteller. That doesn't mean you're like making things up, right? But telling it in a fashion that's relatable and adds stakes and some kind of human element to give these concepts kind of life. I think is important. I think of course it's easier said than done, especially when you're talking about friends, because I can sit and write a script and edit the script and record it and post it and say exactly what I say, tailored exactly the way I want it. But it's a little bit harder when you're, sitting in a group of friends at dinner and you want to talk about it, right?
It's you. Yeah, you got to know your audience. Like I remember one of the funniest. Like I've tried to talk to my girlfriend about the Proto-Indo-European migrations 15 different times, and like it's never gonna come across very well. It's such a dry and just like unimportant aspect of history to her. However, she's super into yoga. So when I was able to tie it into the fact that the Aryan migrations are what brought Hinduism to India, and this is what shaped their mythology, and this is why there's correlations between Norse mythology, Greek mythology, and Hinduism, she was like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, Hinduism, because she's super knowledgeable about Hinduism. So that gave her an in for understanding like the historical aspect of what I was trying to talk about. But everything else is just noise. So it's like if you know that one person is interested in one particular aspect, you can introduce them to new things that are correlated to that thing. But you can't just like, it's like it would be selfish of us to just expect everybody to just like listen to us in our interests if they don't have any interests in those things. So I would say that's the most important thing. Yeah. Well, guys, 2.5 hours. This has been such a cool conversation. I'm still thinking about right now. I'm like, what's the title of this video gonna be? What's the like main theme? Because we touched on so many things, but it's all kind of in the same realm. So, but yeah, I'm super excited about this. Dante, really quick, we're gonna have all your links in the description, but please just give us a shout. Where can people find you? Where can they interact with you? And what are you working on? What's coming up next?
Oh yeah. So it's Thoughts of Dante everywhere, YouTube or Instagram, TikTok. Um, Anywhere you can find videos, I'm sure Thoughts of Dante is on there.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I have coming up now is I just, got a background, I got a mic, and I'm trying to up, more of the content edit more and get more widespread. Mostly because I feel like I have a voice now that people listen to, and I can actually make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned a little earlier, but I really want to hone in more on the academic side and kind of get into like a lane of academia to where I can write books and go to seminars, talk about it, debate, have conversation about it. It's going to take a lot of legwork on my end, but I'm willing to do it. I mean, I have questions I want to answer. So that's kind of the biggest thing I'm working on now. I'm also learning Greek, which is great. I'm trying to learn other languages to mainly read primary text, but then it also
Yeah.
kind of leads into a whole nother space where I can talk to people and imagine like talking like firsthand accounts of like Greek events, like with Greek, like that's a whole different lane. But like
Yeah.
Greek and trying to learn. Um, and then yeah, St. John's. I'm gonna be heading over there and getting a master's in philosophy. So
That's
that'll
awesome, dude. I'm super excited for you. I think if there's anybody who can bring sort of these like older, more archaic things to light in a way that's refreshing and relatable to such a wide audience, it's you. And so I'm super excited to see you grow, and I'm excited to see what's coming up next for you.
thank you, man. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify, also subscribe. It really helps us. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
Peace.